right, a very good morning, everybody, from Captain Nabs. Welcome to the stream once again. It's been a while. Hayden UK, good morning. How are you today as well? I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for tuning in right away. First thing, yeah, what can I say except that it's been too long. It's been 2.5. It's been at least 2 weeks since I last did a stream. Maybe it's been 3 weeks. It's been a very long time, certainly since I did a pilot's live stream. I think I did one ATC stream in the interim, but it's just been a while, and I regret it. I don't apologize for it, because at the end of the day, I was working for most of the last 2 weeks. I just got off a long stretch of work. I worked 10 out of the last 11 days, 1 day off in the middle. It felt like it's just been a very, very long slog. So for that reason, of course, I couldn't... Of course, for that reason, I couldn't obviously stream, because it's kind of hard to do that while you're working. So it just evolved, and I knew it was going to be this way. I knew it was going to be a long period of time before I had a chance to hop back in the flight deck, and I really haven't even touched the sim barely in that time. I didn't think I was going to get this stream going on time, because I was having issues updating my my JFK scenery, and I hadn't even started the sim by about 30 minutes ago, which normally I like to try and have it started and everything kind of booted up and getting ready early, because I find that when you don't do that, it tends to take time. How could I remove this free Twitch subscription? I don't regret it in the sense that I just had other things to do. You know, I regret it, and I regret it, but I don't apologize for it. You know, I made choices. Like, I did have 1 day off in the middle, and I made that choice to make sure that I took care of family things first and all that. So yeah, like I find sometimes we get very apologetic over things that we regret that they happen that way, but we don't regret the choice we made given the circumstance, and that's one of those things. And I'm always fighting with that work-life balance myself. So I don't apologize for choosing family life over other engagements, especially when work is grinding away at you for so much of the rest of your day. So, but I do regret that it has been this long, and I'm glad that we're going to get back into this, and hopefully we'll have quite a few flights in December as well. But happy end of November. I hope it's finding everybody well. Boy, it's cold out there. Whoa, it's gotten cold since the last time I streamed too. Promotion for my channel, viewers, chats, etc. Thank you so much. I'm sure you're not a bot at all. What was I saying? Yeah, so yeah, it's got a lot colder. So here we are down in a much warmer destination than where we are right now. So where I live is pretty cold. Family, with the online family, I like it. Thank you, Uncle Wiki. That yeah, I guess I just don't value my online family enough. But yeah, so today we are getting ready for another flight in the JetBlue A320, and we are in a pretty warm location. For those of you that don't recall from last time, we are sitting in New Orleans. So I don't actually know what the temperature is in New Orleans. It's probably not all that warm in the grand scheme of things. I was in Dallas the other day, and it was actually 6 degrees. 6 degrees Celsius, which is pretty darn cold for Dallas. You know, you think of Texas being a hot place, but it gets pretty chilly. Even right now in Dallas, right now today, it's 5 degrees, and New Orleans 10 degrees. So down on the coast, it's a little bit warmer. The ocean's probably moderating a little bit, but it's still not warm. It's still pretty chilly, and there was snow as far south as Oklahoma yesterday. So yeah, it's pretty chilly out there. But today, what are we doing today? We are heading from... I've got to do it this way here. So good morning, everybody. And in order for you to see what I'm seeing, I got to put this up here. And now you can see that we are heading from New Orleans all the way back up to New York City again. New York's JFK this time, John F. Kennedy. We've had enough of LaGuardia. The field there, LaGuardia scenery is not great. Not loving it, so not feeling it. Let's move on to a different airport. And really, I'm not really doing that on purpose. That's just the way it was set up for me. But nevertheless, I kind of agree that we've probably done enough of it lately. And I just feel like I'm awfully dark here. So I'm just going to play with my color correction for a second here. Just see if I can turn myself up if that's not too obscenely bright. But that looks a little better. Yeah, so that's what we're up against today. I do have the INI Builds JFK scenery, so not the default scenery. I removed the default scenery, replaced it with the INI Builds. Again, Microsoft default scenery. It's not terrible. It's better than auto-generated, you know, buildings, but certain airports deserve the respect of a proper scenery, and JFK is definitely one of them. It's very complex, very busy airport, and definitely the part of the one of the biggest problems I find with the Microsoft default scenery is often just the gate labeling is so ridiculously incorrect. You can't even begin to figure out where the gate you want to go to actually is when you're trying to hook up GSX and say, hey, send a marshaller to meet me at this gate. And Microsoft has just randomly labeled numbers on gates with no correlation to reality. So that is probably one of the biggest reasons I find that I have to use payware scenery in a lot of cases, is just to fix the gate numbering problems at a lot of these major airports. Anyways, today's flight's about a 3-hour flight. It's 1,027 miles, so let's go ahead and hop in that flight deck. If you guys don't have any more snide remarks to make towards me, then let's get in that flight deck and let's get going here. Oh, that button there. There we go. Haha. I'll figure it out eventually. All right, first things first. Let's just get some electrical power going on here. And let's get those IRSs starting to align. And welcome to Dan, who is my FO today, and he's got really captivating eyes, apparently. Staring at me while I'm trying to power up the airplane. Dan, thanks for making us all feel uncomfortable. Alright, let's just load this up, because as soon as I tap this, it's going to start doing all this stuff. It's going to set off the GSX. I have my FSX to GSX running here, and you can see it's now automatically selecting things, selecting catering, services, fueling, and all that stuff for me without me doing anything, which I love. I think that is such a neat piece of integration, and that was probably the one thing that was kind of missing from GSX. GSX did all the stuff it needed to do, but you had to trigger it all. And in the real aviation world, the pilots don't trigger much. Most of the time, we sit here fat, dumb, and happy and just set up the airplane and go flying, and everything else happens around us. And I made that comment last night. It's like, it's so nice. We literally just walked away from an airplane. The passengers got off, customs cleared us, and we just walked away from the airplane. Leave everybody else to take care of it. It's not your job anymore, which is... I enjoyed the responsibility when it was my job, when I was doing charter work, and it was my job to look after the airplane and make sure that it's hangared, it's fueled, it's locked up tight, and everything, all the stuff that needs to be stored, it's all clean and all that stuff. It's all done by me, and I know it's done because I did it. But sometimes it's nice to just not have the responsibility. Oh, plane's shut off. APU's down. Boom, I'm out of here. Yeah, you guys are on your own. Anywho, let's get this thing started here. So for starting off with aircraft status, we always start by swapping the databases. It doesn't really show it here, but normally most of the time when you sit down in an airplane, there's already a stored flight plan, maybe some stored user-defined waypoints, other stuff like that, and it's all kind of listed right here in the bottom right corner of the status page. So how many flight plans are stored, how many user-defined waypoints. When you swap the database, all that information gets cleared out. So it's a really quick, easy, dirty trick to reset the FMS completely. So when one crew gets out, the next crew comes in, you don't want to have anything left over hanging around from what they did before. So you just simply swap the database. It wipes out everything that's been user stored in the database, and you're just back to the plane the way I won't say the way the manufacturer intended, but the way the airline intends anyways. It's just a clear database, nothing extra stored in it besides the nav database, and you start from there. The biggest thing we've got to start with, of course, is we've got to make sure that we do initialize our IRSs. So let's do this, JBU, and today we're JBU 422, JetBlue 422, going from KMSY to KJFK. And the reason why you put that in is that then when you go to the IRS initialization, now it's got a waypoint. Now it knows New Orleans 2959.6 by 90, what does that say, 15.5? And, nope, not that one, that's wrong. Menu, bringing that up, sorry. Bring up the other menu. I want to bring up, takes a couple seconds for this stuff to load here. Now, I'm curious if anybody who has a faster video card can tell me, is Navigraph load faster when you have a better card? I imagine it must, but there's lots of information in there that's got to be cached as well. So I'm curious if it's as much just the fact to have a slow video card, or it's just Navigraph is doing a lot of stuff when it first starts up. All right, so KMSY 2959.6 north, yes, by 9015.5 west, 9015.5 west. Perfect. Align on the ref point, and we've got our alignment started. And that's basically the biggest thing you've got to do when you first sit down, is just get the batteries on, IRSs on, and start the alignment process. And then you've got time to kill. We basically can't take too many of our next steps until we get that IRSs aligned. The biggest thing for our airline is we can't start initializing ACARS related functionality until that timer's complete. The airplane needs to know where it is before it starts trying to call on ACARs. Otherwise, there's different ACAR systems out there. There's different companies that you can subscribe to their service, and if you haven't fully initialized the position of the airplane, you can end up using the wrong company services, and maybe it'll cost your airline more. So your airline will prioritize which ACAR system, if it can get a hold of it based on its location. Which one does it prefer to use? Which one is cheaper for us? And if you try to initialize it before the ACARs are fully aligned, or before the IRSs are fully aligned, then you may end up using the wrong system and cost the company money. So it's not one of those things. It's not the end of the world, but just over time, certainly the extra cost can add up for a company. All right, so since it's 6 degrees outside, let's just see, what's it look like in the cabin here? That's 22 degrees in the cabin. They must have had the heat on all night, so that's good. That's good. Just going to get these over there where they need to be. Not a whole lot else you can do while you're waiting. We can put up the Unicom for VATSIM because I don't think we have any controllers online. I didn't actually really honestly look. Surprisingly, there's no controllers online. Now that I looked, I am not surprised by the results. Yeah, so while we're waiting for that, of course, we can make sure everything else is happening outside that needs to happen. Boarding's happening, catering's here, fueling's here. Look at all the stuff happening. There's a Southwest trucks selling us catering for some reason. But anyways, the important thing is that if I can actually get through here, that we have these guys fueling our airplanes, getting ready to go. Yeah. I gotta say, like, GSX has done a pretty nice job in terms of making all this stuff look pretty functional and feel like things are actually happening. It's not perfect. But all in all, for like a free-form area, the way they managed to organize and make these vehicles all drive around and come to the right point on the airplane and unload and everything, it's pretty immersive. If you sit there and watch it carefully, you'll see it's not perfect, and there's always little glitches and breaks, things clip through one another, but it definitely creates a spirit of an airline that's functioning. Things have to happen before you depart. All right, we've got 2 minutes for our IRSs to align. What we could do in the meantime is we can actually get our takeoff data. So actually, before we even do that, let's go ahead and just make sure we're set up for a walk around here. So let's get nav lights on, park and brake on, and check all of our levels here. And it's... Aha. Check all of our levels here. So we've got sufficient oil for the flight, sufficient hydraulic fluids, and we've got sufficient oxygen for the flight. Perfect. All right. First flight of the day, we should do the oxygen test. The way it runs in the sim is not really correct, but close enough. We should do a door test. Open and close the door. Make sure that it does operate properly. And... what else do we have to do? Check and make sure that all of our documentation that we need is with us. All of the emergency and safety equipment is with us. All that kind of stuff. We've got an axe. We've got a fire extinguisher, protective breathing equipment, all that sort of stuff. And of course, make sure that all the circuit breakers. No, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to move this thing out of the way. How do I move it out of the way? Should be the release is right there, but it doesn't, because there's circuit breakers behind the jump seat. You can't see them if you don't move the jump seat, but apparently we're not moving the jump seat. All right, I think she's aligned now. Perfect. While we are just getting started here, though, let's just do this one thing, and let's go ahead and start doing takeoff data here, because that usually kind of takes a couple seconds for us to figure out. And as always, I'm going to use my app, because at least in the US, and this is one thing that bothers me to no end about Canada, is that we don't put ATISs out on the internet. Why? Why? Just why? Like, at this point in time, like in 2023, why is it that I can get any American airport, I can get an ATIS just on my phone? It's all online. It's on the FAA's website, and various apps have downloaded it. Download that information when you request it. Why is it impossible for Canada to do the same thing? Why can I not get an ATIS for any Canadian airport online? What reason is there not to? It's a great backup system. I can, I was in an airplane the other day, The internet, that will never catch on. Yeah, exactly. I was in an airplane the other day that the ACAR system was unserviceable. We couldn't get the ATIS via ACARs, which is normally how we get it, because normally we try to set up about 300 miles back from the airport. About an hour before we were supposed to land, we actually started setting up. In this case, we had to just make a plan based on what we figured might be happening. And the ironic thing was that we could use our EFBs. We have internet connectivity in the flight deck for weather purposes. We don't have full connectivity, but we have weather. Our weather apps work on the airplane Wi-Fi. So we could get a METAR at the airport, but we couldn't actually get the ATIS. So we could figure out, we could guess what was happening, but we couldn't actually see what the actual active runways were. So we just had to speculate until we were within range of the ATIS, about 150 miles away. By then, it's really later than we want to be briefing. You don't want to be briefing at the last minute. So imagine if we had digital ATISes. You could just look it up on your weather app, and boom, there's not just the weather, but the active runway. Because we do the same thing in the U.S. all the time. We're checking the ATIS through our weather app long before we get there, just for updates, just to see what's going on, to be situationally aware of what's potentially happening at the destination. All right, so arrivals expect runway 2, departures runway 2. It's 3042 on the meter. Taxiway Golf, close between Golf 1 and Golf 5. Golf 1, Golf 2, Golf 3 closed, Golf 4 closed, 1129 closed. All right, so 02 it is. All right, let's just do this really quickly here. All right, so we do have 02 dry runway. Let's just sync our load sheet right now. Optimal flap, force token no, anti-ace no. Let's do packs on. And since that's synced up, that's fine. Weather 11 degrees now. It's gone up a little bit. Sure, 1030 sounds about right. It's a high altimeter setting, 3042. Let's go ahead and calculate and see if we can get some takeoff numbers here. 02 is a little bit of a short runway. Oh, it's still managing just fine. I was almost going to say it's a little bit shorter. I was almost expecting to see a flap 2, but it is a flap 1 departure. With a flex takeoff, 56, 33, 40, 40. Looks good. So 02 looks very feasible for departure. And with that, we can get into the meat and potatoes of the setup here. All right, nav accuracy upgrade. GPS is primary. All right, so we can go now into the ASU system here. Initialize our flight. We can just use the automated data initialization system here. Give it about 5-10 seconds, and boom, there it is. JetBlue 422, New Orleans, JFK. Alternate is Dulles 208 en route. That's not too bad. All right, and the other half of this then becomes a secondary init request. And let's get the secondary automatically. Let's save ourselves some work. Oh, and it's not that you can't function without ACARs, but boy, when you don't have it, it just makes everything take longer. Our airline normally does all the takeoff performance through the ACAR system. We send an uplink, and it goes to the company's specialized computers, and it calculates the data and it spits it back out at us. It's not to say we can't do it without the ACARs, but then you have to actually go on our company website, go into the performance app through the company website. It's a lot slower process than using the ACARs. So it's not that you can't fly without ACARs, but boy, ACARs makes things a lot more efficient in terms of getting data in and out of airplanes. AOC secondary flight plan uplink. So let's have a look at that secondary flight plan. And New Orleans to JFK, that kind of looks a little bit like what I saw on the flight plan, so I'm going to go ahead and accept that now. So we'll activate that secondary, and then we'll go through it again in more depth once as we get to it in the setup process. All right, so all that stuff's been done. ACARs is all initialized. We are ready to begin our overhead flow in the aircraft. Make sure we got no lights on. All of our ACARs are in nav mode, or all of our ACARs, I keep calling it ACARs. ADIRs are in nav mode. No lights, no lights, no lights. Tester CBR. This one's a really quiet one. Some of them are really quiet, some of them are really loud. This is one of those quiet ones, I guess. Audio switching is normal. First flight of the day, we gotta test our fire protection system. Alright, so that's all good. Let's see here. Hydraulics, everything's good there. Fuel. think the fueling's done. Our fueling flag's gone. And we got 9,800 kilos. We don't have anything in the center tank, which is a pity because of the MEL I had today. Ah, too bad. Let's put that back on manual. So the center tank pumps are manually selected off because there's nothing in the tank for them to draw on anyways. All right. Electrics, let's get the batteries off. And this is one thing, and I actually did finally complain to Fenix, and they said this is actually a known issue. When you turn the batteries off in a 320, it shouldn't give you an amber alert, because if you intentionally turn them off, it's not an amber. What it does is just, it should turn white, and it should just say battery 1 off, battery 2 off. And I actually did finally send a complaint to Fenix, and it wasn't so much a complaint as it was just like a snag. It's just like, here's some bugs. Like, I don't think you guys have seen these. Maybe you're aware of them, maybe you're not. But and they said this was one that they were aware of, was the battery indications are not correct, and that is something that's on the development roadmap. The other two, they said, yeah, they weren't aware of, and they were going to add it to the development roadmap if they could, which I find odd, because the one I complained about was the fact that the align lights on the IRSs don't come on while the IRSs are aligning. These align lights should come on and remain on until the alignment process is complete for each ADR, and they don't. The on battery light comes on, but the align light does not. So I thought that was weird that nobody seemed to notice that. Pack tube off for efficiency, and let's see here. We are done fueling. How's the temperature in the cabin doing with the bodies getting in there? It's staying pretty stable. So kind of surprising, actually. All right, we'll leave the APU for just a couple more minutes here. Trying to sort of, you don't want to start the APU too early because it does tend to use up a fair bit of gas. You only plan to start about 10 minutes early. And I know in Europe they're big on this. In North America, it's a bit of a joke. Most places don't seem to care too much how long the APU runs for. Certainly, the airports in North America, there's very seldom any kind of limitation, restriction on when the APU is started. And in Europe, I know most places it's like 10 minutes before departure. No more than 10 minutes or you're going to be in trouble. The airline's going to get a fine. 3041, actually. 3041. But in North America, nobody cares. Nobody cares how much gas you burn, how much noise you make, how much fuel you waste. I care. I don't want to use it more than I have to. I'll start it when it's time. 10 minutes before departure, but 20, 30, 45 minutes before departure, if you don't need it for cooling or heating the cabin, as long as you have electrical power available, there's just, there's no point. All right, so flight director's on. Not sure why those are show value. They should be going now, but the flight director's on. They should be going to dashes. All right. Let's see here. NDs looks good. BFT looks good. Seatbelts, no smoking. Park brake, TCAS standby company message. All right, so that's fine. And the date today, 11/28 is correct. So the clock is correct, it seems. I didn't set this. 3041. And the other thing I forgot to, actually, as I went by here, I kind of skipped a step there, was I forgot to pull up the compass to remind me to do the compass check in a second here. All right, we got nothing on the audio panel. This should be in Cal. Put that on weather, otherwise it's good. Let's see here. Speed brakes are stowed. Pressure page is checked. Landing elevation auto at 0 makes sense for JFK. It's pretty much sea level. Status page. Nothing on the status page. Cat 2 and optics. Don't have any engines running, so that'll change in a few minutes. Engines are off. Ignition switch is centered. Rudder trim is neutral. Parking brakes on. Gear alternate gear extension is stowed. Nothing. No yellow lights on the radio panel, radio management panel, or audio control panels. Gas on, transponder on standby number 1 should be TARA, and we'll put it on all for now. All right, and then a quick flight instrument cross check here. So we got one FT2, one FT. I gotta just adjust my track IR sensor because it seems like where I keep moving my head to, it doesn't see anything. One FT2, altimeter 3041 inches. We're looking at about negative. Sorry. Yeah, we are looking about negative 20 feet, 3041, negative 20, 3041, negative 20 feet, and it kind of makes sense for New Orleans. We're extremely close to sea level in New Orleans. And heading 092, 092, no RMI, 092, and 092, 092. All right, so that's all good. And we're now ready to hop in the box and quickly set up our flight, because nothing happens quickly in an Airbus, but that's okay. All right, so let's see here. Aircraft status. We've got an A320-200 with a CFM56-5 Bravo engines. The database is current till the 29th, so for 2 more days it's current. And I did have a performance factor on here. I want to say it was +3, I think. It's very seldom you get an airplane with 0 fuel factor. Yeah, +3. Is this thing in kilograms or is it in pounds? Kilograms? Yeah, that sounds right for kilograms. All right. Nope, I did that wrong. That's the idle factor. Idle factor should be 0. Performance factor should be +3. All right. Didn't see any viewers at detune, so we're going to go straight to the init alpha page. And again, we're going to put in, I don't know why when you get the secondary in this version that it clears out the flight number, because it actually should bring the flight number in with the secondary initialization. But anyways, flight number is JetBlue 422, New Orleans to JFK, alternate of KIAD, Dulles, Washington. Cost index today of 5. We can probably pick that up if the weather's suitable. 370. It's a pretty good flight level there today, and temperature deviation of +5. So let's call it -48. Trope of 44,900. All right, and the IRSs we did check already initialized at 2959.6 north by 9015.5 west. All right, departing New Orleans. We've checked the ATIS. It's runway 2. That's it. That's only runway. All right. No SID on this one. I believe there is a SID, but actually, no, I don't think there's a SID in New Orleans. I have not been to New Orleans in a while. Let's just check this out here. Are there any SIDs in New Orleans? No, there are no SIDs at all in New Orleans. It's just going to be fly runway heading and maintain some altitude. So because we don't have any ATC, we're going to make it up as we go along. Runway 02, no SID, no transition. Insert. And for the other end, JFK, and we go to our flight plan for this, because usually the flight plan has a suggestion. Anyways, 3-1 right, sure. New York's one of those places where the suggestion is barely even worth anything, because everything that happens in New York is so dependent on the other airports. But we'll go with it for now, and we can change it once we're en route. Cameron 4. I'd rather do a no via for now and look it up later, so that way nothing's automatically closed up. All right, so we've got the ILS 3-1 right, no via, the Cameron 4 departure. All right, so we're looking for a total distance of 1078. I've got 1080 in the flight plan, so that's very reasonable. Looks like everything's kind of adding up there. And let's see, do I have any step climbs? No step climbs, no user-defined latitude, longitude waypoints. Perfect. So let's just go through this here. Now, normally there's a great shortcut that I can actually do in the Airbus, but it doesn't work very well in the Fenix, and you should be able to store the route here. And when you store the route, it should abbreviate everything and put all the airways and everything together, make it much easier to read. This function, I find it's hit or miss in the Fenix, and more miss than hit. But there you go. It actually worked for once. Wow. Quite impressive. So you can actually see JetBlue 422 from New Orleans to JFK, direct Catlin, Q64 to SOD, Q97 to delay, then direct RADS, and it should actually show you the rest of it too. It should be direct SIE Cameron 4, but I don't see it there. So for some reason, Fenix does not do that, storing the flight plan very effectively. So we'll just scroll through here. After RADS, it looks like RADS, it's starting the Cameron 4, or sorry, no, RADS SIE Cameron 4. So that's all there, and it ends with an ILS to 3-1 right. So all that should also go in the data in the stored route page, but for some reason the Fenix does not quite do it correctly. There's lots of little tiny glitches. The overall feel of the FMS is very, very, very highly well done, but there's little things like that are missing. All right, RadNav auto-tune is great for the departure. Secondary, we're just going to recopy it, and then we're going to do an immediate return. So after the discon on departure, we're going to put KMSY as a destination and set up an arrival, and ILS to 02. No star required, no transition required. Just put that in there, and at least we can pop the secondary in, and boom, we've got OLED, Royal, POVI, and MSY-02. So we got an immediate return set up there if anything really bad ever happens on departure. All right, init Bravo page. Taxi fuel of 0.2 is very reasonable here at New Orleans. The en route reserve should be 0. The alternate fuel of 2.2. And the final fuel of should be about 1.0. It's usually about 1 in the 320, and sometimes if you're light, it might be 0.9. You get in the 321, you're usually looking at about 1.2-ish, 1.3. All right, ZFW, and actually what we can do is we can just scroll over to our second screen here because we should have gotten load data already. And it looks like we did get load data, so let's just zoom in a little bit here. 55.6, 0.6, no, 0.6, and slant 30.3. Slant in there. Slant 30.3. Block fuel. We got 9.9 on board, which wow, sounds about right. Let's see here. Yeah, 9.9 is what we should have with no extra. We do have some extras anyways. We've got about a ton of extra fuel. 9.9, and this gives us takeoff weight of 65.3. And it's not even on here, but it should have an estimated takeoff weight here. Or was it back on this page? Takeoff weight 65.3. And the numbers we used over here, just quickly, 66.4. So we've actually gone down a little bit from that. For our airline anyways, we have a 2-ton, we have 0 to minus 2 tons is the allowable window. So we planned at 66.4. We could actually take off, use these numbers down to 64.4 before we need to consider recalculation, and we're well within the middle of that range. You can't go above the numbers you plan, but you can go below by up to 2 tons. So normally we kind of plan up about 500 to kind of give us a leeway right off the bat. Anywho, so that's looking good. The wind component for the calculation here, plus 124. No wonder we're doing this flight in 2 hours, even at a cost index of 5. Holy jolies. That is a heck of a wind component. 5.3 for 202. And let's see here, 5.2 for 208, very close. We've got a total extra today of 1.3 if you add the weather ATC and contingency fuel together. 1.4 on here, there's the 100 kilo discrepancy there. Definitely very reasonable anyways. If I zero this wind back out, what does it change it to? It changes it to 235. So we're saving almost 30 minutes because of the 120 knots behind us. Wow, that's impressive. I haven't seen a wind component that long in a long time. If we take off right now without the winds in there, 0.1 extra. That's why it seemed low. It honestly seemed pretty low to be less than 10 tons to get us to New York. And my instinct was right. It is pretty low, but with that heavy tailwind, it's definitely doable. All right, wind request. This one usually comes back. In the real world, it usually takes it takes a couple minutes. This one comes back pretty quick. All right, we've got some climb winds out of the west, cruise winds, and descent winds, and they're all blue, which means they're all inserted into the performance data, so that's good. We can actually go to the performance page, and let's just steal this information here. So for runway 02, no takeoff shift 1, we've got up 0.2 and 56. So 1, up 0.2, and 56. And this results in speeds of 33, 40, 40 with 10-10 altitudes. 133, 133, 140, 10, 10. Slant 10, 10. And 10, 10. So much data to put in. But it's all about preparation. Alright, 216 is the green dot speed at this weight, so we'll pre-select that speed for the climb. We'll accelerate once we're sure we're safely above all these obstacles. Cruising today at 250 managed. Alright, let's see here. So that's it for the performance page, prog page. So we're planned at 37, the max is 377. This might be kind of a little tight. You want about 1,000 foot leeway there. So by the time we level off, it should be okay. The optimal claims is 35. And let's just do for a reference point, we'll do the threshold of the runway. just so we have something to look at if we need to start thinking about coming back. We can know how far away we are, and IRS drifts are all 0.3 after a couple minutes. That's good. Perfect. All right. Whew. It's a lot of work to set this up, but especially when you're doing it single pilot. Thanks for all your help, Dan. Yeah, so we've got that. We don't have ATC online, so we don't have a clearance. So we're just going to quickly go through this and make sure that we have some reasonable waypoints for departure. But basically it is straight ahead 1501, and we just keep on going on the 017 track. And I guess I'll just got to select my own top altitude. So I think a reasonable top altitude always seems to be about 5,000. How does a plane even get off the ground? We have to program everything in like DOS. Well, you know, and it's an interesting way to kind of look at it. But at the end of the day, it's the pilot is there for a very good reason, and to tell the plane what to do. And what this does is basically you're telling the plane everything you want to do before you get off the ground, so that if bad stuff starts happening, you've already got plans in place. Things have already been calculated. Like the whole reason why we do a takeoff performance calculation is so that we don't have to make that decision at V1 or when we're approaching V1. When you're rolling down the runway at 123 knots and the engine suddenly fails, do you stop? Do you go? You know, you don't have time at that instant. You have to make a quick decision, and you don't have time to weigh a lot of factors to decide what's the safer course of action. So basically when we do takeoff performance calculations, we're doing that ahead of time. We're factoring in all sorts of stuff. And I mean, this is like the calculations we do now used to be done on paper with charts and everything. Now it's done you know, by computers trying to figure out the optimal solution. But basically what it's doing is it's looking at things like the temperature, the pressure, the slope of the runway, the direction of the runway, the winds, all that stuff, the weight of the airplane, like all that stuff. It's looking at all that stuff and saying what's the highest speed we can still reject at safely, and it's giving you that speed, so you can make a decision much more easily. This is the speed. As soon as we're past the speed, we are committed to flight. Period. End of story. You know, decision doesn't need to be made before that. We can reject it, and depending on the nature of the situation. And there's about other than anything red that comes up should be a reject. There's about, I think there's 6 amber alerts that should be a reject as well once you're above 100 knots. Between 100 knots and V1, there's very few things you should reject for, because it's going to be a pretty dangerous is not the right word, but it's definitely going to be pushing the capability of the airplane to the limit potentially if you're rejecting close to V1. So there's a very limited subset of items you can reject for once you get above 100 knots before V1. But by pre-calculating that V1 speed, you know, a captain doesn't even have to think about, are we going fast enough to reject? Can I reject on the remaining runway? You look down at the speed, and as long as the speed's below V1, you can reject. The decision's already made for you. Rejecting is an option. Whether or not it's worth it, you can make that decision yourself, but at least you know you can do it. So a lot of it is about preparation. The thing is, before departure, it's a very low workload environment. It's all about areas of vulnerability, and once we start the airplane moving, we become very vulnerable to distraction and things going wrong if we get distracted at the wrong time. So we do so much preparation before the airplane ever starts moving. So once the airplane starts moving, we switch from a programming phase to a monitoring phase, and we're watching to make sure that the plan that we've made ahead of time is being executed correctly or amended as need be. And that's huge. That's really a big part of what we're doing is we're just making sure that everything is done before, as much as possible, we're making sure as much stuff is done before we ever leave the gate. So once we leave the gate, we can focus our attention on the few things that do change rather than being overwhelmed by changes. All right. I hope that answered that question. Distraction. What was I doing? Okay, so just finished the FMS. Yeah, we got a top altitude here. I don't have a SID to look over, so I'm going to give you departure briefing at this point. Are you ready for the departure briefing? Are you ready for the takeoff briefing? Let's start setting up.
Go ahead. Roger.
He's very sluggish sometimes, this guy. Okay, so today, first of all, technical status of the airplane. We do have one MEL. I didn't show you guys this because actually now it doesn't even impact our flight at all. But we have an interesting MEL today, if I can find it here. We have 282001, the auto fuel feed system fault. Since it's not impacting the operation at all today, I'm not even going to talk about it yet. We'll talk about it later. But basically, the auto fuel feed system is what controls when the center tank pumps go on. If the center tanks are in auto, it's basically the system that decides when the center tank pumps go on to start feeding the engine. So if that system's faulty, we have to turn the pumps on and off ourselves manually. Thank you. That's the one thing I wanted to do. He's got the APU running. Perfect. Thank you. So because we don't have any fuel in the center tank today, this does not impact on our operation at all. If you were to read the MEL, you'd say if there's fuel in the center tank, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. We don't have that, so literally it's not impacting our operation at all. Any NOTAMs to impact our operation. So let's have a quick look at KMSY. Pretty straightforward airport. We saw there were some runway taxiway closures here. Basically, this Gulf taxiways all affect runway 11. So 1129 is closed except crossing and taxi. 1 hour prior permission required. 1129, it's fine. It's closed. We don't need to worry about it. SIDS. There is no SID. There are departure procedures, but there's no SID, so we don't even have to worry about that. So there's nothing that really impacts our operation off runway 02. So today we are doing, there's not even a SID to look at. We're literally just going to be flying runway heading, maintain 5,000, and once we get above an MSA, and let's pick an MSA off the charts here. So I'll do the ILS 02, MSA for New Orleans, 2,100 feet. So once we're above 2,100 feet, there's no obstacles within 25 miles of the airport. We can go ahead and turn on course. So passing 2,100 feet, we'll start turning on course. Noise abatement, non-existent in New Orleans. Let's see here, and then we talk about company pages. We don't have company pages here, but it's not a mountainous airport. Level of service, it's a VFR day, so I'm not worried about level of service. And engine out procedure is going to be the same thing. We're just going to fly runway heading until we get to at least 2,100 feet before we make any turns. Performance in the box today for the left seat departure off of runway 02. It's a no takeoff shift, flaps 1. Flex 56, speeds 133, 133, 140, standard transition 18,000, 1010 across the bottom for the thrust reduction, acceleration, engine out, acceleration altitudes 218, is it 216, 218, 216 is the green dot speed carried forward for the climb. It's going to be a managed departure. We've got climb blue, nav blue. I'm going to get the autopilot on before 2,000 feet.
I'm out for the walk around.
All right, thank you. Once we get, I didn't start him up earlier, so I should have, my bad. He does move the seat. Ah, that's hilarious. And then he's gone. That's hilarious. Yeah, now he's not listening to my departure briefing anymore. Anyways, yeah, I'm gonna probably turn the autopilot on before we get 2,000 feet before we start turning on course, just because it is basically a single pilot operation and there's enough other workload to do. Other than that, yeah, immediate return. I think we're just under the max landing weight here, 65.3. We're actually just a little bit over, 64.5. So we may need to, if we do have an immediate return, we may have to run the overweight landing checklist, and that's about it. FS2 crew getting better and better. Yeah, they're getting better and better. It's still glitchy in MSFS, and I don't think it's necessarily an FS2 crew problem. I think MSFS is not the greatest developer interface, I think. Threats for the departure today. The fuel auto feed fault is not a threat, but I'll talk about why it'll be a threat in the later on when we get going here. Just got to get this guy to finish doing the walk around. Hey, somebody is over there. Somebody is flying the JetBlue flight as well. Nice. Welcome to whoever that is. I don't even know if it's one of you guys watching or not, but anyways. Other than that, I don't see too much else. Yeah, the one closed runway doesn't impact our operation really at all. We're allowed to cross it. It's just because there's some taxiway construction and other stuff going on here. So we're going to taxi out for runway 02. We are going to have to cross runway 29. That is a hot spot. It is closed, so it shouldn't be too much of a hot spot today. And yeah, it's a relatively short runway at 7,000 feet. So immediate return, we can still make it back and land on that one. We definitely can land an Airbus on that 7,000 feet. I can't think of too many other threats. We'll wait for him to come back. We'll get this checklist out of the way here, and we're good to go. Let me just make sure while we're waiting for him to come back, my flight is tracking. Yeah, that's tracking. Perfect. Let's see here. APU is up and running. External power is off. And APU bleed he's got on. Love it. I think we're just about ready to go here. So once he comes back from the walk around. Any questions? Any questions? No. Not here to answer. I can't believe I forgot to send him for the walk around. I forgot to trigger the script. I forgot to say let's start setting up at the beginning just to trigger the whole script. So that was my bad. But we'll get going here in just a minute. It's a short flight today. I'm shocked at how short it is. While we're waiting for him to come back, I guess I could show you the MEL if I can find it here. So I have it on my tablet. I just wonder if I can find. I think I looked at this before. So here's the MMEL. No, yeah. So let's see if I can find it here. It doesn't even have it in here. Alright, so I did find an airline's MEL. These things are actually surprisingly hard to find on the internet. For most things being out there on the internet, MEL books are actually hard to find. It's slowly loading. There's 578 pages. Let's see here. Fuel is on chapter 28. Still loading.
I'm back. No issues on the walk around.
Any questions?
No questions.
Alright, he's back.
You're on traffic, Blue 1422, we'll be pushing back from Charlotte 34 over 802, New Orleans.
Alright, so he's pushing back, and we're going to push back as well. Guess we're going to wait for him. Give us a couple seconds to go through the MEL book anyways.
Hello, Captain. We are ready for pushback.
Alright, so I'm going to leave this up because this is the one thing I always forget is that I have to tell them where to put the airplane. That's okay, we can look at the MEL together while we're waiting for that. Hopefully they have the MEL here that I...
Departure checks completed. Bypass pin inserted.
Alright, found the fuel chapter.
Locking gear.
There it is. Ah, and it's so simple. It's annoying because it doesn't even tell you what to do here. So, well, I found it. So this is it here. This is the A320 MEL for the automatic fuel feed system. They have it as 282001. And one installed, none required, maybe an operative preferred to ops procedure, automatic fuel feed system. So it doesn't actually tell you how to do it in the MEL. All right. Wow. Because we're like right at the bottom of the alley here, I really want to kind of make sure. Oh Lord. Try not to look at that. I really want to make sure like they get us to the right spot here. So. Right up there. Good.
Hi, the security and safety check are all done. Are we good to start boarding?
Go for it.
Okay. Hi guys, here is the load sheet for you.
Thank you.
No problem. Have a safe flight.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Hey
welcome
guys,
on board
all
today.
packs are on board.
As
Are
you
we clear
locate
to
your
close?
assigned seat, please place your
Clear to
smaller
close.
items under the seat in
Thanks.
front of you to
Let me
provide
know
more
if you
room
need
for
anything.
larger items in our overhead compartment. Release parking brakes, please. If you need assistance, contact the flight attendant.
Before start
If you are
checklist.
unable to accommodate any item in the cabin, please bring it to
Parking
the boarding
brake.
door and we will check
Release
it for
parking
Set.
brakes, please.
you. Also review the safety instruction card
Set.
in your seat pocket.
Takeoff
If you
speeds
are
and
seated
thrust.
At an exit seat, also review the exit seat.
B1 133, BR
Release
133,
parking
B2 140, flexing 56 degrees.
V1 1 3 2 VR 1 5 1
Release parking
V2
brakes, please.
1 5 1 Windows
Closed.
beacon
Release parking brakes, please.
On.
before start checklist completed.
All right. Yes, I am on VATSIM.
Release parking brakes, please.
I think we have enough room to push.
Release parking brakes, please.
Takeoff runway. Takeoff runway
Cancel
confirmed.
checklist.
Approach path clear of traffic.
Release parking brakes, please.
Oh, stop doing all this
Release
stuff.
parking brakes, please.
You're an idiot.
Anti-ice.
Cancel checklist.
Roger.
Release parking brakes, please.
New Orleans traffic. JetBlue 422, gate Charlie 1. We're commencing push back into the alley.
Release parking brakes, please.
All right. I think there's enough room for him to turn around, so I'm going to go ahead and start this off here.
Commencing push. All engines clear. Start at will.
Yeah. Normally VATSIM is pretty good, but every once in a while you get pushbacks that, yeah, they get a little wonky like that, where it's all kind of like at angles and stuff like that. It happens from time to time. All right. Starting engine 2.
Okay.
US traffic, JetBlue 1422 is taxiing to runway 02, Golf 0.
So I had this MEL come up recently anyways, this fuel feed fault. This auto feed fault MEL came up recently and it's
Set.
great. Cancel checklist. I think it's a combination. I think it's mostly a GSX problem. I think it's the way GSX kind of manipulates the airplanes. I think you're right. Like, I don't think it's a VATSIM problem per se. VATSIM's just taking the data. I think the way the data is getting transmitted, I think it might amplify the problems. Because like you get a small little rotation, but because of the frequency with which the data is grabbed, it, you know, by the time you actually get the next data point, it's already rotated the airplane way too far. So I think it's more a GSX problem in that the planes are swinging around a little bit too much. But
Please set parking brakes.
Cockpit to ground. We have a good engine start. You can disconnect.
all right, that's good. Starting engine 1.
Okay.
Wait to see that disconnect thing go away. But yeah, it's the fuel auto feed fault was an interesting one. It's not a whole lot of work, but it kind of gives you a great reminder of exactly what the system is doing for you behind the scenes when you're not really thinking about it. And it wasn't a huge amount of work, but the funny thing was that the day I had that one, we had 2 other MELs that were really kind of added a lot of workload. The 3 of them combined created a lot of workload. There was a bleed valve issue, and then there was, what was the other one? I almost can't remember what the other one was now, but there were 3 MELs. They were all
truck disconnected.
all 3 were unrelated, but they were basically automation systems that were not working and required a lot more manual steps for us for the departure.
Right is clear.
To the point where we felt like this is ridiculous. Like, we're doing way too many extra steps, and there's way too much stuff that is potentially being forgotten here because it's
US
just,
traffic, JetBlue 1422 is
the MELs were not
crossing
terrible individually, but it was a lot put together when you got all 3 of them
29.
together. But yeah, with the
Or
fuel
11.
auto feed fault, what we'd have to do is we'd have to make
Pumps,
sure that
yeah.
we turn the pumps on now, start a timer now that we've got both engines started. So engines 2 and 1 are normal. And this person should be showing us the pin in a second here. There's the pin, perfect. I see the disconnect light's gone. Yeah, so the fuel auto feed fault. After start, you have to make sure that the center tank pumps go on. Start a timer for 3 minutes to test that they function. Then after 3 minutes, you have to turn them off again. Then once you've retracted the flaps after departure, then you got to wait for the fuel load to drop below 5,000. Turn the fuel pumps back on in the center tank again. It was such an extra amount of work to kind of think about. We were departing a very major American airport. It was very busy. It was just like there's just too much going on here. All right, anywho. After start checklist. And I realize now the one thing I didn't do is I didn't set up this departure here.
Anti-ice.
133. Off.
ECAM status.
Checked.
Pitch trim.
Traffic JetBlue 1422 will be departing.
Set
runway
and checked.
02 to the south.
Rudder trim.
Neutral.
After start checklist completed.
Left side clear. Clear left side.
Clear right side.
Northwest traffic. JetBlue 422 is taxiing from the terminal for departure runway 02. Brake check.
Aircraft transmitting. We can't hear you.
Pressure 0.
Should be working. Traffic, JetBlue 422 radio check.
505.
Thank you. JetBlue 422 is taxiing for departure runway 02. Check the departing traffic. Alright. There he goes, and we're going to follow him out here shortly, and obviously we were not on the right center line there. Not that there's any other airplanes here to hit, but it's good to see when people work together. Alright, there he goes. Flight control check.
Ready. Full up. Full down. Neutral. Full left. Full right. Neutral. Full left. Full right. Neutral.
Flight control check complete. Rudder.
You're in traffic, JetBlue 1432 is clear runway 02. See you.
Alright. That's one thing that really kind of bugs me a little bit about the Fenix here, and I mean, I understand it, but when you're trying to do the rudder check, the FO wants you to do the rudder check and he wants full deflection, you can't disconnect the nose wheel steering. So there is a button on here, nose wheel steering disconnect, right on top of the tiller, and when you press and hold that button, the nose wheel doesn't move when you crank the rudder pedals around. So you can do a rudder test on the ground, which is exactly what's supposed to happen. However, you can't press that button in the sim. It doesn't do anything. So anytime you press the rudder, the airplane's nose wheel is going to move. So you try and do this check, and the plane swings wildly from side to side. Frustrating. there should be a way to bypass and be able to perform this check in a reasonable way. Like, just click the button once and like maybe have it like a toggle. It's supposed to be like it's a sprung button, so you're supposed to push it down and hold it. But maybe in the sim we could make it like a toggle button. So I just tap it, the nose wheel doesn't move, and then come back, tap it again once I'm done doing that rudder check. It'd be nice. All right, cleared to cross runway 29. We're just gonna check both sides, then we're gonna do the taxi check once we're clear of that runway. Taxi checklist.
Flight controls.
Checked.
Checked. Flap setting.
Config 1+F.
Are you sure about that? Radar and predictive wind shear system.
Yeah, I didn't see it. It's weird. On and auto.
Engine mode selector.
Normal.
ECAM memo.
Takeoff, no blue.
Taxi checklist completed.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome on board our flight today.
All right, I think we're ready to go. I'm just going to do one quick check here and make sure that we are tracking the flight. Yeah, I see the taxi route is tracked, so everything's working.
There is an instruction card in your seat
New
pocket.
Orleans traffic,
that
JetBlue 422, take position runway 2 for the straight out departure.
Regulations require compliance with this information as well as all crew instructions.
Runway entry procedure.
Lighted information signs and posters.
Takeoff runway confirm. Approach path clear of traffic. Cabin crew be seated for takeoff.
Tighten by pulling on the belt to release your seatbelt. Lift a metal flap on the buckle.
I do see runway 2 on the
It is our
pavement.
policy that you keep your seatbelt fastened at all times while seated. Doors are clearly marked with exit signs and instructions for door operation. Each door is equipped with an escape slide. Locate the exit nearest you. The nearest exit may be behind you. In an emergency, lights will illuminate
Lineup
the aisle.
checklist.
The cabin is pressurized.
Lineup checklist.
Takeoff runway.
Cabin pressure.
2
A panel
confirmed.
will open an oxygen mask to
Checked.
appear.
TCAS.
Remain seated with your seatbelt fastened.
TARA.
And pull the mask towards you to start the flow of oxygen.
Packs 1 and 2.
Oxygen
On.
is flowing to the mask.
Lineup
because the
checklist
bag
completed.
does not inflate. Cover your nose and mouth with the mask. Place the elastic band around your head and tighten by pulling on the ends. Secure your own mask before assisting others. Your seat bottom cushion may be used as a flotation device. Pull
Takeoff.
up and remove the cushion.
Manflex 56, SRS runway, auto thrust blue.
Place your arms
Checked.
around the cushion
Thrust
and
set.
hold on to the straps located on the
100 knots.
Roger.
back. This is a non-smoking flight. Smoking is not permitted in the cabin or laboratory.
V1.
Cabin lights
Rotate.
will now be turned off. Reading light buttons are located above your seat. Thank you for your attention.
Positive climb.
Gear up. Nav.
Gear up.
Climb, all blue. Thrust climb, auto thrust. Autopilot 1.
Speed checked. Flaps 1. Speed checked. Flaps 2.
Flaps 1.
Speed checked. Flaps 1.
Flap 0.
Speed checked. Flaps 0.
New Orleans traffic.
Radar altimeter
JetBlue
alive.
422 is clear of runway 02 airborne in the right turn out towards New York. Alright, we're going to manage speed, we're turning on course, and let's go ahead and set a higher altitude of 370. Because we got no VATSIM ATC today. Not unreasonable, not unexpected. I'm not really complaining because it is it is a weekday morning. So, you know, you take what you can get. We do get some sometimes, but you take what you can get here. This is just a little bit uncomfortable. All right, let me know what you think of that volume balance. I think it was okay on the departure, and it feels like the volume's already faded away. The airplanes do get quieter as you get higher up in the air. There's less airflow noise over them, and the engines are working a little bit less hard as well in the thinner air, so as you do go... Why is this guy not... After takeoff checklist. Is there an after takeoff checklist in this airplane? No, there is no after takeoff checklist. No. But he didn't do anything. And sometimes he falls into this glitchiness, and then, like, I called for flaps 1, and then he went to flaps 1, he went back to flaps 2, went to flaps 1 again. Now I think he thinks we're on approach phase already because it's looking for a flaps 2 call. FS2 crew, when you work, you're great. However, it's become harder and harder to get you to work properly, I find. Yeah, no, there is no after takeoff checklist in the bus, and it's true, there isn't one. There isn't supposed to be one. But I was just trying to see if maybe I could trigger him, because he didn't even disarm the spoilers. When he went to flaps 1, he didn't disarm the spoilers. Don't think he killed the taxi lights. No, he didn't kill the taxi lights either. You're killing me here, buddy. You're killing me here. Oh well. She is climbing well though. Maybe we will make it to 37. How's it look now? So it's saying 37.9. We'll probably be okay. The thing is, if you've got less than 1,000-foot margin between your max and the altitude your ground plan cruise at, you're gonna have a very small airspeed window. You hit a couple of bumps and boom, you're out of your airspeed window already. Alright, there's 10,000, climbing flight level 370. And let's see, what are we doing? We're doing 300 knots indicated in the climb. That's not too bad. Took us quite a while to get airport today. I feel like that took a little while. I definitely was chattering away, nattering away through the whole thing, trying to get, just trying to keep you guys abreast on what I'm doing, trying to explain what I'm doing as I'm doing it. So I found that it felt like it took a little bit of time to get going here. And I didn't even change my performance in OBS here, so I have two different versions of the same screen here. One that has one that captures my entire monitor output. One that captures just the game output. I find the game output one has better performance, but then what that does though is that it blocks anything that I try to drag over the sim window to show you things like browser windows, Pilot's Life, like this. If I go to my other stream, even though the window's actually still there, you guys can't see it because now it's just streaming just the game directly from the video card. I find that's better for performance, but then it kind of takes away a little bit from the interactivity of the stream when I can't show you some of the software things that I'm using. But all in all, I think that was a pretty good departure. It went pretty well for the most part. My FSX to my Fenix to GSX definitely worked properly. The integrations all worked nicely there. My biggest glitch was that I forgot to tell the guy to go do his walk around early on. I think that was really the biggest glitch that I came up with that departure, which is not bad. But yeah, when it comes to the departure process, yeah, it's a very thorough, lengthy process to set an airplane up for departure. But the whole point is that when you're sitting at the gate, the workload is, I won't say it's low. It's low from the perspective of there's nothing happening that needs immediate attention most of the time at the gate. As long as there's not like a giant fuel spill or something happening all of a sudden, medical emergency at the gate. But basically everything that happens in the airplane is very low key at that point. So you have lots of time to think and plan through things. So we go through the departure very carefully. We consider the options. We look at the takeoff performance, look at the runways. We analyze the takeoff performance. Can we get off this runway this day? We program in the whole route ahead of time so it's all there. So we're not wasting time while we're en route, changing things and doing things. In the two-pilot environment, when you had crews that were larger, when you had 3- and 4-person crews, there was more attention that could be divided to these different tasks between running systems, flight planning and updating the flight plan and things like that, fuel monitoring, stuff like that. But when you get into a 2-person flight deck, it's very easy for distraction to take away from both people's ability to do the work. So the whole point of the whole setup process and these lengthy briefings and this lengthy process we go through is that we basically now sit here, and as long as everything works according to plan, we're not going to honestly do all that much. But the point is that we've done all the work so that if something does happen, something does go wrong, we lose an engine, we have some kind of a serious failure, now we've already done a lot of the work and we can focus on the changes, the situations that present themselves, the dynamic situations. Icebird for all pointed this out, and yeah, I noticed this as well. Like I saw the email this morning, and even it popped it up here when I opened up Navigraph charts the first time here in the sim. Stand by just 1 second here because we're just approaching transition. So let's go ahead and just go standard. Transition set standard. No, he is really locked into approach phase. He just wants to do the approach now. Yeah, so now we have FAA sectional chart overlays. So I don't even know how to do this in all honesty because I just saw this, but let's see if we can't figure this out. Let's see here, if I close this, probably do it this way here. Close this, and then FAA sectionals, there it is. Boom. Oh, wow. Yeah, look at that. So there's the whole FAA. That's basically the VFR charts. It's the FAA's VFR charts. They're called sectionals because the whole country's divided up into a whole bunch of sections. Each chart only covers 100 miles wide by like 40 miles tall or something. So maybe 200 miles wide. I don't know what the exact size is, but it's a very relatively small chart, so you can get a lot of detail on them. You have to zoom in quite far to read all the detail here. Pilots are encouraged to use the New Orleans VFR terminal area chart for flight at below 700 feet. Here's an airport we're just flying over. Obstacles, VORs, obviously terrain, power lines, roads, railways, airspace. Everything you certainly need to fly VFR is on here. That's really awesome. That is really awesome, and these are a digitized version, but like you can see, it doesn't scale. It's not vectored. This is a digitized version of like the actual chart, so you have to zoom in to a reasonable level to actually be able to read it. But that's neat. That's a really kind of nifty innovation now that Navigraph has been able to do that, been able to digitize that. I'm guessing it's probably just the US sectionals, and it probably ends as soon as you get to Canada. We don't have Canadian charts up here. No, they haven't loaded the Canadian sectionals in, because Canada does have its own sectionals, but no, they're not loaded in. Just the FAA, but for some reason in Canada we don't do digital, or we charge too much for the digital. I don't know, but we don't seem to like doing digital in Canada, and that's not strictly true. Nav Canada's got a lot of technological innovations, but for some reason they don't want data being distributed online. And I understand that to a certain degree, because this was a debate that was being held in the FAA, like 10 or 15 years ago. It was like, how do we pay for the cost of developing charts when we don't sell charts anymore? And that was because the charting office used to be, I don't know if it was necessarily revenue neutral, but they charged $7 or $8, I think it was about $7 or $8 for every chart that you'd have to buy. And part of that went to the printing cost. Yes, there's obviously a cost of paper and ink. It wasn't $7 per chart, because the chart's one chart, it's double-sided, but it's, probably like about a 3-foot by 2-foot piece of paper. It definitely didn't cost $7 to produce it from a purely printing standpoint, but part of that $7 also just went to the collecting of the data. How much does it cost me to collect and distribute this data? Not even distribute it, but to collect the data and publish the map itself. So I don't know that it was necessarily revenue neutral, but definitely there was some cost offset by purchasing those charts. Now in the modern world we live in, nobody buys individual charts anymore, pretty much. Like I think you still can, because there is still a value to it, to having a printed chart. Like most people have their chart on their tablet, on whatever device they have. And you don't just have one chart, you have the whole country's worth of charts. Like it used to be, you planning across country for 500 or 600 miles, you'd have to go to the chart, you have to go to the local map store and buy 5 or 6 different charts that covered your route that you were going to do. Now you buy one subscription and it covers the whole country. But there was some debate about this, over whether the U.S. Should charge for the data itself, or whether they should only just charge if they're selling physical maps, but the data should be freely available online. And there's arguments to be made both ways. There is a cost to gathering this data and processing it and creating this charting system. You know, and it's, you know, the thing is, it's always being updated. Like there's always changes happening. You know, towns are growing, airports are changing, obstacles are being built, you know, new towers are being built, airspace might be changing. Things are always changing, and that's why, like, these charts have to be updated fairly regularly. And there's a cost associated with that, with the collection of that data and the design of these charts, the charts themselves. So do you charge for the data itself? And there was a big debate. Because there was a bunch of companies that originally, I don't think the FAA charged for the digital version of the data. And so a lot of companies kind of were starting to make, we're offering this data as a subscription package. You know, they packaged it up into a nice, easy to use app and selling it as data. And then the FAA came along and said, I think we're going to start charging for this data because companies are using this. We're not selling charts anymore because people are buying the apps on their tablets, and we're not actually selling the physical charts anymore. We're not able to bring in enough revenue to offset the cost of actually creating this. So, but at the same time, there is an argument to be made for making aviation safety related data free. Cost should not get in the way of people grabbing needed data and to make their flight safe. You know, does the FAA charge you for reading their airworthiness directives? Does it charge you for reading the regulations online? It doesn't actually charge you now if you go and buy the book. Yes, they charge you for the book only because it costs, you know, the book is huge. The book is like, you know, if you go get the FAR AIM book, it's like 2 inches thick. That's a lot of paper. That's a lot of ink. It costs money to produce that from just a physical object perspective. But do we actually charge for the data that goes into that, or do we just charge for the production cost? And there is a cost to produce this data. You know, we kind of think of data as being so free these days, even though because it's traded around the internet so much. But there is a cost to generate this data. Should the individual users using it pay for that? And that was a big debate that they had about, I think it was like 15 years ago now, whether, you know, all these ForeFlight and all these other charting apps should be paying the FAA to use the data, because they were then turning around and making money off their apps. They were selling their apps. They were selling subscriptions. They were making money off the data. Should the FAA be charging them something to use the data? And then there was a big uproar. Well, we won't be able to make money if you charge us for the data. But it's like, well, if you can't make money selling a product without paying for the source of the product, without paying for the source materials, then you're probably not in a very good business to begin with. You know, if I make widgets and I need wood and metal to make these widgets, and if I, you know, do I go to the lumberyard and say, well, I can't afford to sell the widget if you charge me for the wood, so give me the wood for free? It's different, but it's not. You know, the data, we seem to have this vision that data is free. Data is not free. Data costs money to produce. Once it's produced, it can be replicated very freely. But there was an initial production cost, and certainly with charting in the aviation industry, that production cost never goes away because we're always updating. Things are always being changed, updated, amended. We need to be up with that. So I think that's one of the reasons why Canada especially has kind of shied away from this whole distributing aviation information digitally. And especially because a lot of this information is being gathered by Nav Canada, which is an arm's length entity. It's not the government itself. It's an arm's length, not-for-profit entity. But they may not be for profit, but they have to cover their costs. So because it's not being produced directly by the government, but it's being produced by Nav Canada, they tend to say we need to cover our costs. So they don't tend to distribute the data freely, which I understand that, but at the same time, it's like it's not a double-edged sword, but it's a very you have to question, like, does that perhaps harm safety to a certain degree, and should the government step in and perhaps offset the cost? Even if Nav Canada produces the charts, maybe the charting department at Nav Canada should be funded directly by the government as a safety initiative. This is, you know, we're going to provide the budget to cover this because this is safety related. We need to make sure that we have this data is available freely to the people who need it, and that people don't use outdated charts because they think the charts are too expensive. That was always a problem before. and it probably still is today. I haven't been to a flight school in a long time, but people using outdated charts. You know, the sectional charts, especially the VFR sectional charts, tend to get updated. It depends on what's happening. In the busier areas, they tend to get updated about every year or so. In the kind of more remote areas where stuff is not really changing too much, it might be every 3 or 4 or 5 years. But it's certainly in the busier areas, in the urban areas, they tend to get updated every year or so. Do I have to go out and buy that new one? Well, legally, yes, you're required to have access to the most recent information when you're flying around, but the number of people, and students especially, who are probably working on a fixed budget, trying to get their license without spending too much money, you know, going out and buying a new map every single time the map comes out, or the other one that was always a hassle too was the Canada Flight Supplement, the CFS, which is, for those of you that don't know, it's a book that contains a lot of information about aviation in Canada. So the biggest section of the book is the airport directory, the aerodrome directory in the middle, where every known aerodrome in Canada is pretty much listed with basic details about it. Some of the more bigger airports will have more detail, but every aerodrome in Canada is listed in this book. It's updated every 56 days, every 8 weeks. This book is updated. So in theory, and the date is published right on the cover. It's valid from this date to this date. So, you know, valid from whatever until November 30th, and the new one's effective on November 30th. Well, if you go flying on, you know, December 1st, you should have the new version of the book. How many people used to go flying all the time without that? It was quite substantial. They wouldn't always get the newest version of the book because most of the stuff in the book doesn't change, but you don't know what has changed, what hasn't. Maybe that airport you're going to does have changes. You don't know. So, you know, it's certainly the students should have access to the most up-to-date books, and it was on every student to buy it, and it was not a huge amount, but it was $6 or $7. But that's every 8 weeks. You know, if you're spending 2 years learning how to fly, that's quite a number of books you're buying. I don't know if I have any of them around here. I used to have a CFS. I don't think I even have one anymore, but now you can download, I'm pretty sure that you can download a digital copy of for free. Let's see here if I can find it. I'm pretty sure you can download the digital copy of that for free now, but you know, for a long time, like people were flying often with out-of-date information. It's not great, but it was what people did because they every single time the book came out. So here it is. This is one that I found here, anyways. But just shows you what it is available in a digital copy. This is obviously out of date. This is 2020 to 2021, but the sample, anyways. I'm not even sure. Yeah, I'm curious now, honestly, and I think you might still have to pay for it even if you want the digital version. VFR publications, Canada Flight Supplement. Yeah, you still have to pay for it. You get it now in digital version instead of necessarily an actual book, but they want you to pay for it. The subscription, $99 for the year, or $29 for each copy. Wow. So like, yeah, you want to buy it for the whole year, but it's like, yeah, you don't blame people who say, I don't know if I can afford that. Like, I'm a student. Like, I'm trying to, you know, trying to eat still while I'm trying to get my license and everything else. You can't really blame people who sometimes push those limits. What's really changed in all honesty this time since last time? Okay, I'll use this one. Or maybe you and your buddy have a system where you kind of one of you buys it alternating you know, cycles, and you share one copy among 2 or 3 or 4 people. That was very common back in the day. I remember that because like the instructors would always check. They'd always be like looking like, hey, show me the cover of your CFS. Yeah, okay, it's current. Okay, perfect. Now you can go out and go flying. And there were checks and balances like that, but there were always people who were trying to beat the system and trying to always have trying to reuse an outdated one just because, like, you know, a new one, $29, like that's a lot of money to shell out every 8 weeks. And of course, if you know, you want to get the subscription, but then it's $100 a year. Like that's not a lot of money. But when you're a student, you know, you got to watch your pennies. You got to watch what you're spending money on. Even $100, you know, you may not have when it comes up for renewal. I may not have $100 in the bank this month. I may have to wait. There is an argument to be made for making this data freely available on the internet. And I think the FAA has very much gone down that road of making a lot of this data freely available to developers to utilize in their products and to pilots to be able to look stuff up for free. And I think there's a big argument for that. I don't want to sound cheap, but like I was thinking the same things when I was a student. I was I was like looking at every month, and I'm like, I have to buy this, and it's not just one thing. It's the CFS, and it's the VNC, and it's the terminal chart, and then if you're doing IFR training, then you got to buy the approach plates and it's individually they're not costly, but like on an 8-week cycle, that's a lot of stuff I got to rebuy every 8 weeks. It quickly added up. I definitely can't blame students who are on a fixed budget for trying to reuse some outdated data sometimes, because it costs a lot of money. So maybe should we have a program, even perhaps student pilots, maybe not all pilots, but maybe student pilots, probably the ones who are probably having the hardest time financially, because it's not cheap learning how to fly. Should we be offering them the data freely? Whether it be, if you can prove you're a student that you're enrolled in a flight school, we'll give you the subscription for free, or we'll give you a digital subscription at least for free. Because a digital subscription, especially, yes, there's a cost to set it up initially, but it's one of those things. Like, what's the alternative? Is the alternative, in theory, yes, the guy should be paying for it every single month, but if he or the guy or the gal should be, the pilot student should be paying for it every single 8-week cycle. But if they don't have the budget for it and they're just going to reuse the old charts anyways, and they weren't going to pay for it, then are we really losing any money if we provide them a digital copy to download for free? And yes, they should. But it's cost. It's absolutely cost. It's huge. So maybe if you're enrolled in a flight school, flight schools should be able to offer subscriptions with a limited expiry date, but a free digital subscription. It doesn't really cost Nav Canada much to provide the digital data, and the students can still use it and have up-to-date data available to them. I think that hiding safety data behind paywalls is not a very good idea in a lot of cases. It's interesting too, like even you look at like automobile manufacturers nowadays, like you used to be able to buy shop manuals for your car. Well, most car models out there, you go to a store, you could buy a shop manual, you could learn how to fix it, repair certain things, step by step, all pictures and diagrams and everything you need to know in the manual. And nowadays you can't do that, and all the manufacturers are locking their data behind oftentimes subscription paywalls. And so people are learning how to fix stuff on YouTube because that's the only place they can get the information for free, because a lot of time if you're fixing stuff yourself, it's because you don't have a whole lot of budget to repair your car. You go to the shop nowadays, and if you don't spend $1,000 every time you take your car to the shop, it's a miracle. Students and certainly people who are living paycheck to paycheck, that could be the difference between eating and not eating. That's so I think there's an argument sometimes to be made for letting people have free access to safety data if the alternative is not having the data and doing things unsafely. It's a human nature's thing. Yes, ideally we should be paying for the things we use, but sometimes the greater good is served by offering certain things, certain information to people for free. So that's 36 for 37. We're already almost at our cruise altitude here. I haven't even really looked at VATSIM to see who's online, but certainly VPilot's not showing anybody right now. She's not climbing great, but she's not climbing half bad still. She's about 500 feet per minute. That's not half bad for 37. The Airbuses don't often make it up into the high 30s. The Airbus is much more of a low 30s kind of airplane, especially when we start flying the 321, which hopefully we will next season. You guys will see that the 321, very often you're stuck in the low 30s because you're heavy. You got a lot of fuel to do these flights, a lot of people piled in the back, heavy airplanes. The max takeoff weight on a 321 is approaching 100 tons. I'd have to look at it to know exactly what it is, but it's 99 something. So that's a lot of airplane you're lugging around on the same size engines. That's the crazy thing, is that this is the 320 that Fenix's model is with the 5 Bravo engines, the 5B engines. So there's 2 models of the CFM56 that went on the 320 family, the 5As and the 5Bs. 5.8s were the original smaller engines they put on the 320s, and then they came up with the 5Bs, which make the 320 perform a little better, and they put those on the 321. But it's the same size engine on the 321 as on the 320 in a lot of cases, for an airplane that is like 30% heavier. Do people pirate and copy stuff to avoid fees? Are you talking about like pilots? I would say that, yeah, it happens. people copy stuff. Mock Alt Star. Definitely there's a lot of like book swapping too among students. Like, you know, hey, you're going flying right now and I don't have a lesson today. Here, you can borrow my book. There's definitely a lot of that goes on. Mock Alt Cruise. I wouldn't say it's pervasive, but it definitely goes on. You know, students are often working on a very fixed budget. All right, so we're leveled off at 370. I totally didn't get the takeoff time. I didn't even get the time we passed Catlin there, but let's just have a quick look here. Let me just pull across my flight plan here. And let's just start this flight log here. So we crossed Catlin at 16:08. I know this is the boring part, everybody. Nobody likes to see this, but something's got to get done. We got to keep track of this stuff. 16:08 at Catlin, and let's just see, we had on board the fuel. We had 8.0 by the looks of it. All right. So that looks okay. Down 100 kilos is very reasonable anyways. We'll keep an eye on it, make sure it doesn't get any worse. And then 1612. We're pretty close on our top of climb actually. All right, 1638, 1642. But yeah, and then if there's not people pirating stuff, there are students. 100%. There are students that are going flying with out-of-date data because they just feel like I can't afford to buy a new chart and a new CFS and a new IFR plates and everything. All the stuff combined, it starts to add up to a fair bit. And every 8 weeks while you're in training. So yeah, I would be lying if I said I didn't borrow stuff when I was a student too. Working on a fixed budget, you do what you got to do sometimes. It's not ideal, and so yeah. Is it better that we're charging a lot of money for these things, or should we be offering students at the very least a chance to maybe subscribe to this stuff for less money? Less money, maybe if you can get access it through a flight school, do it through certified flight schools, so it's not just a free for all, but offer students a discount on these materials. 1756, which is 1758. That all kind of adds up. Okay, perfect. So that's all good. We'll keep an eye on this. We've got 139 knots behind us right now, and it's blowing us right towards New York at an incredible speed. We are grounded 574 knots. Fantastic. Snow in the hometown. Yes, finally. And I was just talking about this, but yesterday was the first day that snow actually stuck to the ground here, which is crazy. Like for the last week of November, like Toronto, we get snow in November. We don't usually get a whole lot of it, but every once in a while we do get a big storm in November, but we definitely get some snow in November. This is the first time that I can remember where we basically made it to the end of November. We made it to the 27th of November before snow stuck to the ground in Toronto. It often sticks and then melts away in a couple days. And, you know, when you're sort of sitting there and it's cold today, it's warm tomorrow and fine, but like at least it sticks a little bit. I don't think I had seen a flake of snow yet this season at home. Which is crazy to me. Like that's very late in the season to be seeing snow in Toronto. Is the last week of November, and we finally got it. Like we've gotten some decent snow now. Like then not a whole lot here, but like the snow belts north of the city have definitely gotten quite a bit of snow. And we got a little bit of snow here yesterday. There was some snow on the ground, but to make it all the way to the 27th of November. And the funny thing is, like yesterday I was in Dallas. Dallas, it was 6 degrees, and when we took off from Dallas, you crossed Oklahoma, and there was snow on the ground in Oklahoma. There's no snow on the ground in Toronto, so there's some weird. Some places are getting a lot of snow, some places are not. Some places are cold, some places are not. And we are definitely in the not category this time around. Oh well. One thing I did want to talk about as well, speaking about Toronto itself, and I do have my mug here today. So this is my special mug here, and hopefully you can read what that says. If I turn that the right way, but. Yes, years and years ago I got this mug and it says I went solo with Toronto Airways, and on the other side it's got a nice little picture of the 150. Anyways, it's nothing very fancy, but I did get this mug after I went solo. And the reason I bring this up and the reason why I'm drinking this particular mug today is because 4 days ago, on the 24th of November, people showed up at the front door of the Buttonville airport to a sign, and this is not unsurprising, but it's disappointing nevertheless that it happened, closed permanently. So as of last Friday, the Toronto Buttonville Municipal Airport is closed forever and is gone. It no longer exists. It's been NOTAM'd closed permanently, and they've already started removing lots of stuff from it. So the airplanes were basically all gone already. Everyone knew this day was coming. They actually apparently started tearing up runway 0321 at the start of November, and they had till the end of November to finish flying airplanes out because, as of the 24th of November, the airport was closed. The windsocks have been removed. All the signs of the airport, all the taxiway runway signs have been removed. They've started already to demolish the runways. It's so sad. It is so sad. Absolutely, 100%. And I've been meaning to all month, and I never did. And I kept saying, I got to go up there and see it one last time before it closes, because I learned to fly at that airport years and years ago, and I spent nearly 10 years of my career operating in and out of that airport. It's a fun little airport. It's not big, but it was a big family. That airport was a big family. The pilots knew the people who worked the ramp with the flight instructors. Like, they were there. It was all it all felt like a really, really big extended family, a big extended aviation family. And it's just such a historic airport. Like, it's been operating now. It was operating for over 50 years, and being the closest kind of unconstrained airport around Toronto. It's probably the #1 flight training airport in Canada. For years, it was one of the top 10 busiest airports in Canada because of flight training, because of the number of people coming and going. And it wasn't just flight training, it was still business operations as well. There was charter, there was cargo, business jets, and so forth, but primarily because of flight training. I wonder where MillionAir moved to. Yeah, who knows? They probably finally lost their franchise. That was the MillionAir that never stood up to the MillionAir name. The MillionAir brand was supposed to be like such a high-end brand, and then you come there and it was such a joke. You think about it, like, it's a piece of aviation history that has now fallen by the wayside in Canada, because it's taught tens of thousands of people to fly if it's taught one. I look at my current airline, and you look around that airline, and probably at least 20% of the pilots that fly that airline have probably gone through that airport at some point, whether they work there, whether they learn to fly there. Oh yeah, if you go to any other MillionAir, absolutely. That was the thing about the MillionAir. See, and because here's the thing, like, MillionAir used to be kind of like not a half bad brand, but it was kind of just like a brand. An FBO brand like any other. It was not really very distinctive. But then about 15 years ago, it was purchased by a guy named Roger Woolsey, and he saw the potential in the MillionAir brand, and he decided, because you look at people who have business jets, and they're not poor people. It may go without saying, but they're not poor people. So, like, he saw the potential for, like, I can really sell this brand if we upscale it big time. And that was his business philosophy, was we got to upscale this brand. We've got to make this the Porsche, the Ritz-Carlton of FBOs. We want to really appeal to the people who are used to living a certain life, being treated a certain way, and that was his goal. And he did a very good job of transforming the brand into a very upscale brand. Like, they renovated most of the other FBOs. They were absolutely beautiful facilities. The customer service was top notch, absolutely top notch, impeccable customer service. Your Ritz-Carlton level customer service. And then there was just the MillionAir Buttonville, which still was holding on to this franchise that they'd had for years, long before Roger Woolsey took over. And they just held on to this franchise, but it never lived up to the name. It was such a rundown operation. The airport was run down. It never really got a little bit of a refresh here and there, but it was old buildings. It never got like a full-on renovation. The customer service never really. There was a couple times where they tried to kind of up it, and it just, like, everyone just sort of like laughed it off. It's like, this is Buttonville Airport. Like, we do our own thing. We're a small community. We're not a big upscale thing. And there was some justification to that as well, because the big business jets don't come to Buttonville. The runway's 3,900 feet long. It's not long enough to accommodate the bigger business jets. You can get smaller citations in there. You can even get like a Citation Excel in there. But even like the Longitude is pushing it to get the Longitude in there. So you're talking smaller business jets. Turboprops are fine. But the bigger long range, really rich people, Gulfstreams. I think in my whole life I saw like 3 Gulfstreams pull up in Buttonville in 10 years. It was feasible, but boy, it was tight. Those were not the market that was coming to Buttonville. They all went to Pearson, and not because the MillionAir drove people away, but just the necessity of the length of the runway. If that runway had been 1,000 feet longer, And it was possible back in the day. It used to be a family-run airport, you know, and it had 4,000 feet of pavement. It's like, that's enough. Get some turboprops in there, some turboprop business. But then, and I was making this comment to people the other day, like right about in the 2000s. So when I started there, just around 2001, it was a busy business. It was a busy corporate side operation. There was a lot of, every day there was King Airs and citations showing up, the smaller citations and lots of airplanes like that showing up. Every day there was, you know, a half a dozen, if not a dozen of them would show up for various meetings. People would get out, they get in the car, get in the limo, get on the highway, and they'd be downtown Toronto in like 30 minutes. It was great. And then in the 2000s, business was going well for a lot of people, so a lot of these businesses upscaled their business jet operation. They went from a Citation to a Citation Excel to a Challenger or something even bigger. And the Challenger was a tough one to get in there. The runway's pretty short for a Challenger, and so they started going into these bigger business jets, you know, even the Gulfstreams and stuff. And it was hard for an airport with only a 3,900-foot strip to keep up with that. So, you know, the King Airs and the small Citations all got replaced with these bigger aircraft that couldn't get in there anymore. So we stopped seeing it. And I worked at that airport for 10 years. Over the course of that 10 years, I watched that traffic just drop. And it wasn't a sudden precipitous drop, but just the trend. Just slowly over 10 years, it went from, you know, a dozen operations a day, business jet operations a day, sometimes more, to here's just a handful, 2 or 3. Sometimes you get a day or two that we wouldn't even see too many business jets. You'd see the base customers that would come back and obviously do their thing, but transient customers just stopped coming because the runway was not long enough for most of the aircraft that they were now operating. And the sad thing is that when the airport was first started, it was in the middle of nowhere. It was farm fields. The family that owned the airport bought the whole block from one concession down to the next. At that whole farm field, they basically owned the whole thing, and then they sold it off piecemeal to be developed. And of course, they made money off that. But the sad thing is that they owned the runway, the land off the end of that runway. If they'd kept enough of it, that they could have extended that runway 1,000 more feet. I think that would have been a game changer, and I think that airport would still exist today if they had kept enough land and been able to extend that runway to 5,000 feet, because 5,000 is a big magic number target. A lot of manufacturers look at it as like, okay, can we get this airplane in on a 5,000 foot runway? Perfect. It's an arbitrary number, but it is kind of a magic number, and I think that 5,000 feet would have made a difference. The other thing 5,000 feet would have let them do as well was it would have let them have an ILS. There's one thing Buttonville never had. They never had an ILS because the runway's too short. An ILS... it's not really impacted, but basically performance-wise, the requirement is that any runway that has an ILS on it should be at least 5,000 feet long, and so they never got an ILS. They had a localizer with no vertical guidance, but they could never have a full-on ILS, and I think that was the other side of the equation too. It'd be, you know, again, it all goes back to that 1,000 feet. I think 1,000 feet of pavement would have changed the whole thing. It would still be a busy business airport. It would still be a viable airport. And I think there would still be a lot of pressure to keep it open, because now where do people go? That's the other thing, is that in the Toronto area, there's not much out there. The next closest airports, if you're a small aircraft operator, the island is kind of a bit of a joke. They charge so much money. There's very little space for tie down. It's a lot for landing fees. It's really not worth being based there unless you got a lot of money. But a lot of people who own their own airplane, they're not necessarily rich. They have enough money. It's a fun hobby, but they're not, you know, uber rich where I can just throw, you know, tens and hundreds of $1,000s a year at hangar rent and whatnot. You know, they're still negotiating month by month for outdoor tie downs. So now where do those guys go? The next options are Oshawa, which is another half an hour at least drive to the east, Brampton, which is off to the northwest, Burlington, even Markham's got a small little airport, but you know, you have to go farther and farther afield to find these airports. If you live anywhere in the city of Toronto proper, and the comment was made in Wings magazine that this might be the impetus for probably at least 30% of the people who had an airplane based in Buttonville to just get out of flying altogether. Did I know that Markham was purchased by the Thompson family ages ago as a contingency in case Buttonville closed? I did not know that. I didn't know. I looked at it. That's, you know, there's room there in Markham to still develop the airport a little bit, like the runway, maybe improve it a little bit. It's a little bit rough in places. I've been there, but it's a little bit rough. It's not the nicest runway in the world, so yeah, there's definitely there's a foundation of an airport there. There's definitely some room for improvement, though. Perhaps repave the runway, make it a lot nicer, make it a little longer, provide some better facilities, a real good ramp with a good FBO. But even then, it's a bit of a slog from there because it's not even close to the highway. Buttonville was so well located, right next to the 404. You get out the parking lot, you're on the 404 in like 3 minutes. If you miss the light, if the light's red, you're on the 404 in 3 minutes. If the light's green, you're on the 404 in 1 minute. Like it's just such a loss. Because and so for the individuals owning their light piston aircraft, piston singles, piston twins, the next airports are so far away. It's a lot. I think a lot of these guys will get out of it. They'll be like, it's just not worth the drive for me. I'm not going to drive all the way to Oshawa to go flying when I live in Toronto. Yeah, I just can't justify that. I'm not going to get up early on a Saturday morning and drive all the way to Oshawa to go hang out and maybe go flying for an hour or two and then drive all the way home. Ditto for Burlington, ditto for Brampton. They're just a little bit farther. It's a little bit too far out of the city. And from the business perspective, well, now everyone's going to Pearson. And that airport is already overcrowded. It's already capacity constrained. The last thing you need is more business jets, more charter aircraft going to Pearson. But that's it. That's where they go. I mean, if you're operating a turboprop, you can go to the island. But if you're operating a jet, you're kind of out of options now. Pearson's it. That's where you're going. And first of all, you're shelling out a hell of a lot of money to operate a business jet out of Pearson. But secondly, now you're adding to the congestion overall. Like, even for people who never use Buttonville, Buttonville is one of those resources that helped. It's just additional infrastructure. It helped take the load off other infrastructure that people were using. It's just like, people complaining about, well, why are we wasting money building public transit? I want to drive my car every day. Even if you like driving your car and you plan to continue driving your car, public transit still benefits you because it takes other people get out of their car. Other people say, you know what, public transit is a better option for me, and it takes cars off the road. So even if you don't use that infrastructure still benefits you. Buttonville was the same way. A lot of people did not use that infrastructure, but that infrastructure still benefited all the people who live in Toronto because it took the load off of Pearson. And now it's just we're just putting more load there, more capacity constraints, not more capacity constraints, but more traffic into an airport that's already capacity constrained. What do we do? And I should probably go at the end of the stream and just go and pay for that Buttonville scenery because for me personally, as someone who flew there for 10 years, I cannot believe that I don't own that scenery yet. It's because I like flying around in the A320 and the 737 and those sort of things. So I think that's probably the single biggest reason why I don't own it. It's like I looked at it and like, well, it's not an airport I'm going to fly in and out of in the sim very much because I like to fly my jets in and out of the sim. But I think at this point, just to honor it, I think I need to get it. Yeah, they own it under a holding company and definitely have the necessary money to do it. Yeah, I see the usefulness of it, and I think it should be done. I think that there needs to be an alternative to Buttonville, and Oshawa is not really a viable alternative for a lot of people. That's a long way to drive out to Oshawa. If you live like somewhere kind of midtown Toronto or something like that, Oshawa versus Buttonville. Buttonville was maybe a 30-minute drive. Oshawa is going to be close to an hour. I can see a lot of kind of the older people who were kind of hanging on to this, but didn't have a whole lot of money. They had enough money. They owned their airplane. They had enough money to kind of keep it reasonably well repaired and put gas in the tanks. But now going to Oshawa, and I think Oshawa charges a fair bit because they don't have a whole lot of tie-down space. They got a lot of hangarage. They don't have a whole lot of tie-down space. Yeah, it's a shame. It's the end of an era in Canada for aviation, because the other side of it too is how many tens of thousands of aspiring pilots pass through that airport, whether they learned to fly there, whether they worked the ramp there for a while, whether their first job was maybe flying charters in and out of that airport. It's an incredible amount of people when you start to think about who's gone through there over the years, and it's a real shame that this iconic part of Canadian aviation history is gone forever now. But that being said, at least we can say it's going to live on in the sim for a very long time. I personally, as a controller in Toronto, I plan to serve that airport. If anybody wants to fly in and out of it, I will 100% gladly support you. Yeah, I will 100% support you if you want to fly there, and I'm probably going to go start doing it myself. I might even do like a little celebratory memorial live stream sometime soon, and just go do some circuits in Buttonville and just explore the area a little bit. it's such a sad day. I mean, it was sad enough when they closed the control tower and the traffic was falling. And it died a slow death over the last half a decade. Just the traffic slowly dropped off once they said there's a permanent closure date in mind. You know, the flight schools started to pick up and leave, because you can't just leave quickly. You got to put plans in place. You got to be ready so that, you know, Seneca moved to Peterborough, Toronto Airways moved to Oshawa. It was, you know, sort of a slow but steady progression, but it was still, nevertheless, it's a crying shame that chapter of Canadian history is closed. And Uncle Wiki says for the interest is still let the Air Cadets fly out of Markham, which is good, yeah. And again, it comes to like what's reasonably close, because like the Air Cadets, they're not gonna, you know. Parents will do a lot of stuff. I will say that. Parents will do a lot of stuff for their kids. They'll drive their kids a long way for a hobby. They'll spend a lot of money on a hobby, but still, like, if you know, the difference is driving to Oshawa versus driving to Markham. A lot of people will be like, yeah, I could do Markham. And Oshawa's like, it's getting a long way. Like, it's going to take us an hour to get there. You're going to spend an hour or so flying on Saturday, and then I'm going to wait around. I can't even go home because I got to wait around because it's an hour drive back and an hour to pick you up again. It just makes things just that much more awkward, that much more inconvenient. And increases the strain on the existing infrastructure, and Pearson is strained. The other day I saw them doing triples again, and I hadn't seen them doing triple operations in a while, but I saw that they're starting to do triples once in a while now, but they're just understaffed. They don't have the staff to do triples. To do triples, they have to have 3 tower controllers, and most days they have one. They have one guy on staff, so they're not even getting close to needing meeting the constraints to do triples, which is frustrating because it's creating delays in the whole system. Pearson is in need of a big upgrade, and Buttonville closing has just definitely put a little bit more pressure on it. They need enough controllers to be able to really run the airport efficiently. They don't have enough controllers to run the airport at maximum efficiency. There needs to be some additional gating created, I think, too, because the gates are often constrained at the peak times of day. There's so many gating constraints, and we're just getting into the hard season now. We were coming out of summer where it's not so bad. We're getting into the hard season now where things don't happen as fast. As soon as the winter really hits, you start to get snow on the ground, things don't happen as fast. It's plain and simple. The vehicles are not able to drive as fast. It takes people more effort just to move around, to move the vehicles around the airplane. So things, you know, what is normally planned as like an hour turn suddenly is taking an hour 20 because we have to drive more slowly because there's snow on the ground, there's ice on the ground. Things do not happen as quickly, which means the gates usually are even more constrained, and we're not. There's no more gates being built. There's no more terminal extensions being built. There's nothing even being planned, or it certainly has not been announced. And I feel like kind of at a point where something's going to give in Toronto soon. There's more and more airlines trying to do more and more flights to more and more places with the same number of gates. The math doesn't add up. As long as everything goes perfect these days, it's fine. Put me in, Coach. VATSIM controller experience qualifies, right? If they ever have a controller strike, maybe we'll all step up, and all the VATSIM controllers will step up. Like, yeah, we got this, no problem. You know, I realized that at 10,000 feet, I never even turned off the seatbelts, and this guy didn't turn the lights off. Buddy, what are you doing here? I didn't do anything at 10,000 feet today. Wow. I'm trying to be realistic here, but I was just ready for my rant. I was ready for my little morning Buttonville rant here. All right, let's do some checks here. So we're just coming up on that. All right, so fuel's pretty even. Slight imbalance, probably just because the AP ran for a few minutes before departure. Fuel tanks are plenty warm, it was balanced. Let's see here, fuel used, we've got 2,900 kilos used, and we've got 69 in the tanks, which adds up to, yeah, basically 99. So that all adds up fuel-wise, good. We are just about to pass a waypoint here, so we'll do another fuel check here at Figgy. Yeah, I'm just enjoying. Like, I'm enjoying this rant. It's farewell, Buttonville. You will be missed, and then you will live on in the memory of simmers and pilots everywhere. You'll live on in my logbook for a long time. All right, so here comes Figgy. It's going to be at. It's estimated 1637. It's 5 miles to go. I'd say that's pretty reasonable. All right, so 16:37. We're actually 1 minute ahead of schedule, and we're pretty much bang on the fuel. 69.6 actually rounds to 7. So we're actually up 100 kilos on the fuel now instead of down, which is good. The trend's in the right direction. We're not burning more fuel than expected. We actually are a little bit early, so the tailwind's probably even stronger than forecast. 147 knots. Look at us. We're grounding nearly 600 knots. We're grounding nearly 600 knots. We're going to be in New York in no time here. What do we got? We got 17:57. We got about 90 minutes still to New York, but we are making just fantastic time today. All right, one thing I might do is, so the estimate for New York, 17:57, I'm going to put in a 17:27 time point, where you would make a PA to say that we have 30 minutes until we land, and that'll then appear in our flight plan as well. But we are making fantastic time here. All right, I think I've mourned Buttonville enough for the time being, but thank you guys all for sympathizing on that. What else was I going to talk about today? So I talked kind of a little bit about that MEL. It's a pity you can't see the procedure that it's not listed in here. In our MEL book, it's actually, the procedure's actually listed. But the one thing that was really I found that was really kind of nice about that, and this is the kind of thing that you sort of get over time, was that fuel auto feed fault really helped kind of hammer home for me permanently. I've read it before, and and you read some of these things, and you're kind of like, yeah, okay, that makes sense, and you kind of try to learn them, but like, when you're first learning a new airplane, you're drinking from the fire hose. There's so much information to take in, and you're trying to retain as much of it as possible, but it's impossible to retain it all. You're trying to take it as much as you can, but once you get out there and you start flying the airplane regularly, then it becomes a little bit easier to sort of learn things on the go, and certain experiences you have start to teach you certain things. And so this fuel feed fault was one of the really great things that really kind of taught me, like, and I will not forget now what the fuel auto feed system actually does for the center tank. So when the center tank auto button is, when the mode select is in auto and the pumps are on, how it actually functions. So it was really kind of neat like that, because we basically, the auto function was considered an op, so we had to do all the things, turn the pumps on and off the way the auto function would turn them on. And because of the restrictions in the A320, you can't take off with the center tank feeding. That's one of the big restrictions for the fuel system, it's a limitation in the fuel system. You cannot take off with center tank feeding. You have to take off with fuel coming only from the wing tanks. So the way that's designed is basically when you fire up the engines, the center tank pumps will go on for 3 minutes, just to validate and verify that the center tank pumps are working. Once the center tank pumps are verified, so for me, for the MEL, I had to actually manually, once the second engine started, start a 3-minute timer. Once the 3-minute timer expired, reach up and turn the fuel pumps off, and then they don't go on again until the slats are retracted and you have burned some fuel out of the wing tanks. So the fact that the slats get retracted is a sign that, okay, we're in flight and the takeoff phase is not imminent. Well, that was a good little bit of turbulence there, wasn't it? I feel like I'm not sure if I want to go back to... okay, we'll go back to 370, but I feel like it's going to pop back up again after another minute or so. The weather glitch, it'll pop back up again. Yeah, so we had to set a timer, and then remember during the taxi out to watch the timer. Fortunately, the nice thing about the timer is if you start a timer, it's right here on your ND. It's kind of right in your range of vision. So that was kind of the useful thing there. But yeah, so after 3 minutes, we had to turn off the center tank pumps and then not turn them back on again until we were in flight and the slats were retracted. The whole reason why the slot retraction is it's just a definite sign that you're not anywhere close to takeoff and landing. But then the other restriction as well is that you have to have less than 5,000 kilos in the wing tank before you turn the center tank pumps on. Because what happens is that the center tank pumps have more power than the wing tank pumps. So if the center tank pumps are on, their fuel, it basically takes priority. So they're because they're operating at a higher pressure and a higher throughput, more of they'll definitely force the fuel out of the center tank over the wing tanks. The wing tanks are still running, but because there's more pressure and more flow out of the center tanks kind of take priority, if you will, without having actual valves you have to worry about. But more fuel, most of the fuel will end up draining out of the center tank. And what will actually happen is that, of course, every time you feed an engine in an airplane, you're always feeding it more fuel than it needs. The pumps in the fuel tanks always transmit more fuel than the engine could possibly need. That way, there's never a chance of fuel starvation. And what happens is excess fuel then gets fed back to the tanks. And in the Airbus, this also serves two good purposes. One is that more fuel goes to the engine than it could ever possibly need, but also that fuel is also used to cool the IDGs, the integrated drive generators, the electrical generators, so they don't overheat. So cold fuel from the wing is run over those generators so they don't overheat, and then it comes back to the wing. The nice thing about circulating this warm fuel back to the tank is that then the temperatures in the tank don't drop nearly as quickly as they would if they were just exposed to the air without being heated. You don't want to have actual heating elements if you can in a fuel tank, so what we do is we warm the fuel as it runs past the generators, recirculate that back to the tank. But the fuel only circulates back to the wing tanks, circulates back to the outer tank and overflows into the inner tank. It does not circulate back to the center tank. So if your wing tanks are full or almost full, and then you're sucking all this fuel out of the center tank and some of the excess is coming back, what you can end up having is a fuel spill situation while you're flying, where the fuel tanks overflow because too much fuel is coming out of the center tank, going through the engine and coming into the already almost still full wing tanks until they're overfilled again. So you can't open these valves, or you can't turn these pumps back on until the slats are retracted and you've got less than 5,000 kilos in each tank. So we were on a very long range flight. We were on a 5-hour flight, so we had lots of fuel in the center tank, lots of fuel in the wing tank. So we had to wait probably about 30, 40 minutes after we were airborne before we could turn those center tank pumps back on again. Then we had to watch them the whole time. It wasn't a huge ordeal, but especially like the 3-minute timer on the stop and turn the, and checking to see if we had enough fuel burned out on the slat retraction. We were departing a very busy American airport. It was just add additional workload, and we had a bleed fault as well that we had to turn bleed system off and on departure. And it was, oh my god, it's so much additional work. And it's not that I'm complaining about the additional work, but it's just it's more the distraction factor of it. I don't mind additional work. That's not what I'm trying to complain about, but it's the distraction factor. And this is exactly what we're trying to avoid by prepping everything in flight as much as possible before we leave the gate. It's so that we can focus on the individual dynamic task of operating the airplane at the time. So we can focus on, we have to, we have to fly the headings and level off at the altitudes and retract the flaps and slats and everything and gear up and everything. On departure can be a very busy time, and then if you're getting multiple departure frequency changes and getting vectors and everything, it's a lot of stuff going on very quickly. The last thing you need to do is throw a few more things on your plate at that point in time, and that's what these MELs did, was they threw a lot of stuff on through the taxi phase and the departure phase just to add a little bit more workload. I can't remember what the third MEL was, but there was a third MEL, and between the three of them, all three of them added additional steps to the takeoff departure phase that we needed to perform just when we're trying to talk to ATC. And I must have missed a half a dozen radio calls that morning, and I blame it more than anything on just the sheer volume of extra steps that I had to do. And I'm trying to look at these things and kind of reference this and make sure I know that I'm getting stuff done at the right point in time, and then I'm missing a radio call to turn to this heading because I'm sitting here trying to run through these MEL stuff. So and I was having this interesting discussion with a guy the other day about the MELs and how the philosophy of the MEL has changed. It used to be that the whole idea behind the MEL was that if something breaks on an airplane, especially something that's part of a redundant system where we've got multiple levels of redundancy, we don't have to ground the airplane at some remote outstation where there's no maintenance facilities. The whole idea is that we can then get the airplane back to a maintenance base and fix it at the maintenance base. What it's transformed into now, though, is playing the game of, well, the airplane's scheduled for maintenance in 4 days, so let's just let it. We'll fix it in 4 days when it gets to the hangar in 4 days. And so a lot of these things don't get fixed for multiple days at a time. Some of them are pretty benign and minor, and it's not the end of the world. But again, it just adds to the workload. It adds to the risk factor. It's not an unreasonable risk factor in most cases, I would say, but. Yeah, it used to be the idea was let's get the airplane back to a maintenance base where we've got the parts, we've got the mechanics. It's not going to ground the airplane. It's not going to cancel a flight because we can't do the return flight because the airplane's broken. We can say this part is not essential and we can get by without it until the next time it's at a maintenance base. But now the airplane flies through multiple maintenance bases. It goes on for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days before finally someone takes some time to look at a particular issue. Some of them are pretty benign and pretty minor. Some of them are little indicator issues, or maybe a sensor needs to be replaced. But but you know, maybe the armrest is broken or something like that. But some of them can be pretty serious and add a lot of additional workload. The ACAR is not working. I had one the other day where the ACARs was not working, and yeah, we can go flying without the ACARs. The airplane will fly just fine, but the amount of additional workload, it goes up quite a lot. In the preparation phase, we make full use of the ACAR system. All of our flight plan is loaded through the ACAR, so we don't have to spend as much time going through all the waypoints. Not only does it not take us as much time, but it's also probably more accurate. It's more likely that if the flight plan gets transmitted from the dispatch computer through the ACAR system directly into our FMS, it's much more likely to be correct. We'll still check it, verify and validate that it's correct, but it's a lot faster for us to validate it's correct than to put all the information in ourselves. You know, we get the performance data, we get the ATIS, we get the clearance through ACARs. All this stuff doesn't happen, so now we got to call them up. Load finals, our load data comes through the ACARs. Okay, now we got to call them up on the radio. I've got to have a sheet ready to copy it all down. No one step adds all that much difficulty or time, but just cumulatively, it's probably an additional 5 to 10 minutes worth of additional time if the ACAR system's not working. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but like you guys saw how long it took me to get this airplane up and running today. It's a good 30 minute, at a minimum, 25 to 30 minutes. Add 10 more minutes to that. You know, and the airplane's supposed to be turned around in about 45 to 50 minutes. Yeah, and now I don't even, now we're not even talking about time to do the walk around. You know, time to close up the last flight, maybe time to swap the crew. Maybe we're getting off and another crew's getting on. The next crew's only going to have 30 minutes by the time they get into the airplane to start setting up, plus 10 more minutes for the ACAR system. You know, you're going to leave late just because of it. So it's not the end of the world not to have the ACARs, but boy, it just makes things a little bit more awkward and definitely makes things happen a lot slower. All right, I'm just going to have a quick look here. Any controllers in the New York area yet? Well, we have a Newark arrival controller, and we have a ground controller at JFK. So we have some ATC. Some. Keep our fingers crossed that maybe we'll get some more. Yeah. What else? I'm getting excited for Christmas. And partly because the one Christmas present to myself that I bought for myself back in May was the MiniFCU that probably most of you guys know. I did end up going in on the Kickstarter on that, and there have been some updates definitely since the last time I streamed. There have been a number of updates. So they've collected shipping information from the various Kickstarter backers, and the first 700 something units are being shipped this week. Now they're being shipped from Hong Kong, so it's going to take a little while, but they're being shipped this week. So there have been multiple updates on the production cycle. And as with any new product, the production cycle didn't ramp up as quickly or as bug-free as the developers would have hoped. There were glitches, and that's to be expected. And you know, I've waited 5-6 months for this already. Another week or so. Is it a disappointment? Yes. Am I upset about it? Am I going to get angry about it? Am I going to curse and scream about it? Absolutely not. You know, it's a new product with a new manufacturer, with a new company that's never really shipped a product before. So you know, they're getting through glitches and figuring out the process. They said the first week they were only making about 50 a day. They're now up to, I think, about 150 a day. So they definitely increased their throughput. They figured they're going to complete about 1,000-ish a week, and they have almost just shy of 5,000 backers. So they have to ship 5,000 units. So that's a lot of units. So the first batch of units is going out this week. I am not part of the first batch. I will be most likely part of the second batch. I'm pretty sure I looked it up, and I was about backer number 1,100. So the first 700 units are going out, and then they said that they're estimating about 1,000 a week. So I'm pretty solidly sure I'm going to be in that second shipment batch, which will probably go out next week. So it'll be kind of on the fence, a little bit iffy over whether or not it's going to arrive in time for Christmas. If it does, great. If not, it's still coming. I'll still enjoy it when it gets here. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to having that push-pull functionality on the knobs. That sounds terrible when you say it, but I'm looking forward to that push-pull functionality. I'm looking forward to just being able to dial in the various values and it's already kind of got me to the point where I'm thinking like, you know, it's just the FCU, it's just the guidance panel itself here, but you know, they're talking about next they're going to make a mini EFIS, and I'm starting to think, you know, maybe a mini EFIS would be nice too, having the ability to set the altimeter. There's one of the things you set a lot, and certainly in the airplane I tend to play with these knots a fair bit. I don't do it as much in the sim because it's a little bit more awkward just to reach up and click them around, but I often will be changing the range, and certainly as we're getting up there, you know, switching from VOR, DME to constraint mode and all that stuff. So, depending on how much they're going to charge for the EFA section, I think it could very well be worth it just to add a little bit more immersion, make my Airbus just a little bit more complete. But I'm very much looking forward to that, and so it sounds like it's going to ship next week. It sounds like my unit's going to ship next week, and I'm looking forward to that. Once that ships, then it's going to be, I don't know, it's coming from Hong Kong. Couple weeks. I'm not going to necessarily pay for expedited shipping as much as I want it. I'm looking forward to it. I don't have a lot of money to be spending on expedited shipping, so probably whatever the slowest boat they got is probably the one my unit's going on. But nevertheless, it's exciting that it's coming together, and 5,000 backers like that. I got to say, they must have been pretty happy when that campaign ended. Even just day one, the first like hour, because people were waiting for that. Like, I was there in the first hour, and I was number 1,100. So I think, you know, within the first hour, they'd sold like 2,000 units. And by the end of the first day, I think they probably sold like 33,000 plus. Like, they must have been just overjoyed to say, hey, like, look, like, we put, because I can only imagine they must have put their heart and soul into this for a while. They're a couple of Airbus captains that really want to see a realistic Airbus FCU out there at a reasonable price. And that's the thing, like, for the price point, I don't think you can beat this piece of hardware. Assuming it's reliable and rugged enough to survive years of use, and I'm hoping that it will. But these guys are simmers, like, they're in it for the right reasons, right? They're in it because they want to produce a product that they would like, and they're also, and they're selling it to everybody else in the community as well. But I feel like it's a product that they would want, so I think they probably have some pretty reasonable production standards, hopefully that their products are going to last. I certainly hope that they'd certainly build them with that in mind. But yeah, I think that, you know, they're not in it to necessarily make a profit. They're in it, to me, it struck me as a labor of love. They wanted to do it because they wanted. It looks amazing. It looks like I might get it when it goes for general sale. Yeah, I'll let you know how it is. I will definitely. You'll watch me streaming it, and I'll let you know how it is. But I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, it's got me pretty honestly pretty excited. It's gonna be the nice little Christmas gift I gave to myself months ago. But because I spent the money months ago, it's gonna feel like a Christmas gift when I get it, right? Except I have to pay for shipping still. But anyways. Yeah, I will definitely let everyone know what I think about it. I'm sure there'll be plenty of reviews out there, but it's a pretty impressive number that they sold like nearly 5,000 of them. That's pretty impressive, and yeah, like, they're not in to make a profit. Like, you see some of these companies now, and it doesn't take long for a developer to really kind of change direction in terms of management, in terms of like, we're just here to make a buck. And I was just reading this morning somebody complaining about any builds and the direction the company's taken in the last year or so, and they've become very prolific at publishing stuff, but the support has apparently gone way downhill. I haven't really had to go to them for support myself, but you know, people are asking, like, you know, will there be updates and improvements to existing products? And it seems like the general answer is no. Once we put a product out there. That being said, like, they have updated a couple of their airports, but this person was looking at an aircraft. A couple of years old now from the X-plane side, and just saying, hey, like, you know, there's been glitches that have been known in this for a little while. Like, is anybody working on developing a patch to fix these glitches and, you know, update the aircraft, make it a better quality product? And the basic answer was our developers are too busy working on other stuff. And he apparently even got banned from the Discord for even like asking, like, why are you not supporting your existing products? And yeah, that goes into a whole realm of issues. But I feel that, like, there have been developers that have been good in the past that have recently started to fall down the rabbit hole of, like, just quality or quantity over quality. Let's just push a whole lot of stuff out the door really quickly. Maybe it's going to be good, maybe it's not, but let's just get a whole bunch of products out there. And we don't necessarily support them. And a lot of these developers, they start small, and so support's huge when you're small. It's a huge time sink, but at the same time, it's incredibly valuable because generates a lot of goodwill, a lot of future customers, people who will look at your product and say, yeah, I'll buy from these guys again because I know they support their product. And then you get a few years into it, and it starts to turn into, maybe you get the developer gets very successful and they make a lot of money, and then they start to kind of, I won't say they turn on their customers intentionally, but they just look at it as like, how can we make more money? Well, we got to release more products. Supporting the existing products doesn't make us money. Releasing new products does. And I've heard kind of a similar story about Orbex. That in the beginning it was very much a labor of love. It was a small company started by a couple of guys who really wanted to just improve FSX and P3D and come up with much better graphics overall. And you remember like the FTX Global and the Global Land Class and all those products that that kind of really started Orbex. And I didn't know this, but I guess about a year or two, they got purchased by a larger software developer. And ever since that larger developer came along, it's been mostly about just volume, pushing products out the door, less about supporting the existing products. And apparently a lot of the original developers of Orbex have left because they feel like it's not the company's taking the wrong direction. They're not really interested in providing a great experience for their customers, for the simmers. They're really just about how much can we charge people? How much can we churn stuff out the door? And not necessarily doing the best thing for the simming community as a whole. And that's the thing, is so you get a lot of these developers that, like, you get to a certain size and okay, you've got to take on a certain level of management and be able to make the company successful and continue to move it forward and continue to make enough money to support the people you've hired and everything, and the staff and everything. And I get that. But when you start to lose that customer service, that willingness to update the products and say, yeah, okay, our product had some glitches at the start. We don't want to, dedicate all of our developers to this all the time, but like we do need to take a step back once in a while and say, yeah, there are some known bugs in this. Let's take a month or let's take 2 weeks even with one or two people, and let's see if we can't fix some of these bugs, some of the more serious ones. And some developers are very good at this, but some developers they release a product, they dump a product in the market, and it never seems to get updated. Field Air, I'm looking in your direction. You don't see too many updates to Field Air products to improve their products. It's dump it out there and get another one out there. I think Captain Sim's another one that's pretty infamous for dumping airplanes on the market, kind of half done, and never an update. Once it's out the door, never see it again. Aeronautical was another one. Makes beautiful beautiful models in terms of like the exterior and interior looks, but the systems are often not beta tested. There's obvious defects with the systems that they never get fixed. Makes really nice looking airplanes on the outside. Sometimes they're barely flyable on the inside because of the defects with the systems, and they never get fixed, never get updated. It's a shame to see developers go down that road. It's a small community, although it has grown. It might be too late now, but if you haven't done it already, by the way, guys, go do the Navigraph survey. Try not to get frustrated with it, though. I have to say, I've done the Navigraph survey now for probably, 5-6 years in a row. This was the most annoying survey I have ever done. They've changed the format, the way it's set up. I was trying to do it on mobile devices. It was almost impossible to do it on mobile devices. The user interface was horrible. And I really have to email them and tell them, like, please, dear God, next year, don't use the same interface. It was absolutely horrible. Yeah, Uncle Wiki agrees. It's the nature of business. Everything becomes about revenue streams, product cadence, recurring revenue. When a business KPIs become this jargon, it's over. And yeah, and that's the trouble, is that some of these developers that become too big, too successful, AnyBuilds just releases so much stuff now, and it's phenomenal to see how much volume of stuff they're moving out the door, but if they're not supporting it, sometimes you wonder if it's worth the money. But yeah, if you get a chance, do the Navigraph survey, support the Navigraph survey, but we all also need to write an email to Navigraph and say, please, dear God, use some different software next year, because it was horrendous. Everything was about scrolling up and down, and the trouble was that when you were trying to scroll through a list of options to select a particular option that you were looking for, if you scroll just a little bit too far, you'd scroll down to the next question. The list would disappear, and there'd be no input in the list. And I must have done it 100 times if I did it once in the whole thing. Just, we've got multiple dimensions. We've got at least 2 dimensions we can work in. The lists go up and down. To go to the next question, swipe right, or swipe left. But like, why are we scrolling down the lists and scrolling down through the questions? It was so frustrating. I've I can't remember the last time I saw such a frustrating user interface, and I went for it, and I completed the survey, and it must have taken me an hour and a half because of the number of times I tried to scroll through a list and got to the next question instead of going to the bottom of the list. So frustrating. Such a horrible user interface. I can't remember the last time I've seen such a horrible user interface on a website as that Navigraph survey. And I wonder if that's going to impact their returns this year, because it was, I don't know who designed this software, but it was okay if there was like, if you had a list with like 2 or 3 options on it, or it was like a text box that you could fill in an option. But the second you had a list with more than about 5 or 6 options on a mobile device, and I was trying to do it on, I tried to do it on my phone at first. I had to give up on my phone and restart it on a tablet. I restarted it on my work tablet because I was sitting around an airport waiting for a flight, and I restarted it on the tablet, and even the tablet was horrible, because by the time the keyboard pops up, it takes up so much of the space, and then they had this big title on the bottom, and you only had this much in the middle of the screen, you know, where you were actually trying to fill out the question and have the list open, and then the list was kept on popping to the next question instead. It was, I can't remember the last time. It was such a horrible interface. I encourage you to go use it, but I encourage you even more, if you're watching this and you really care about interface design at all, email Navigraph and tell them how unhappy you were with that survey, because it was by far the worst survey. And if I was not as dedicated to this hobby as I was, I would have given up on it after a couple minutes. I'm dedicated to this hobby, and I believe in it. And I think the Navigraph survey is important, because I think it really kind of gives a fantastic slice of what people are doing and seeing how this hobby is developing. But my God, if that had been anything other than like a hobby I'm truly dedicated to, I would have given up on that in 2 minutes. It was such a frustrating experience, and it didn't have to be. That we've used much better survey software in the past. But you get people, and yeah, this Appleification of the internet, where everything's got to be simple and easy, and you just got to wave your finger around and magic things happen. It's like this whole form over function. You know, oh, it looks really pretty when you do it this way. Yeah, but it's not really usable. It's not really usable. When you start to actually use it day to day, and you're trying to do actual work with it, and it's not usable, it's like, it's so frustrating. Anywho, end that rant, because I think I've ranted that one too long. How are we doing here? All right, we got I've got a little bit less than an hour now, I think, right? 17:56. We're at 17:04 already. Any chance I can see the JFK ATIS yet? Not yet. I can't see anything there yet. Yeah, I'm still looking for that MiniFCU. If you guys have got a Christmas wish list, I'd love to hear what's on your Christmas wish list this year, whether it be sim related or not. You know, I don't have a whole lot. Like I tend to, I've got so used to living on a relatively tight budget that I don't even think about what I'd like to spend money on anymore. People ask me what I want for Christmas. It's like, I haven't even thought about spending money on myself in a long time, for the most part. The only thing I really spend much money on personally is this hobby. I spend probably more than I should, and I try not to. I try to mostly make it the money that I earn in revenue from you guys watching, which thank you guys for watching. I try to mostly use that revenue to support this hobby, so I tend not to spend as much as I used to. I used to spend a bit more. Now, out of the money, you know, I tend to use mostly just the revenue that I make to pay for things. It's not to say it's exclusively, and I will spend money on something, but I try not to. But outside of that, like, I don't spend much money on myself ever. And it's so habitual at this point that I don't need, people ask me what I want for Christmas, I don't even know. That being said, there are a few things that I do know I want for Christmas. Most of them, mostly hobby related. I would like a new video card, and I'm slowly saving money for that. And it's a slow, painful process, but I am slowly saving money for it. But I'd like a new video card. I'd like that A321, the Fenix A321. And beyond that, I think I want that Buttonville scenery. I think those are the 3 things. If I could pick 3 things, those are the 3 things I want to see right now. I want that Fenix A321. I really want to fly the A321. It's a nice. It's different. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, I need a graphic card upgrade badly. I really do. And trouble is, I still can't afford it now, and it's cheap right now, and I think things are going to start going up again in the new year, especially SSDs. If you guys are in the market for an SSD, apparently it's never going to be a better time to buy an SSD than right now. The prices have just completely bottomed out, but now they've been kind of drifting downwards for so long that the manufacturers have started to constrain the supply a little bit. They started to reduce the production rate because it's just part of the reason why the prices are so low is because there's a glut. There's so much SSD. There's so many SSDs on the market that nobody can sell them for a high price. Everyone's got to cut their prices just to sell them. So the manufacturers have started to cut back on the manufacturer. Samsung, especially, which makes a lot of the individual components and SSDs even that other people sell, has definitely said they're increasing the price of their components. So starting next year, you're probably going to see the still 1 minute early here. You're going to start to see the price of SSDs go up. So if you haven't bought one, this is apparently the season to buy one. This Christmas will be the season to buy one. 5.9, we're still up 100 kilos on the gas. We're doing good. We're doing good. Still 143 knots behind us. Yeah, for me, I would like another SSD, but the higher priority is definitely for me right now is this video card. But I mean, just looking at how fast you fill up your hard drive with sim. I've uninstalled half the sim updates, half the world updates, because I just can't spare the hard drive space for places I don't really fly to. If I ever fly to them, I'll download the scenery there, but mostly the North America. So Canada, the US, those are the updates I keep. Most of the other stuff I've removed them because I find I'm not flying to those places. So what's the point in taking up 10 to 15 gigs of hard drive space with each of these world updates? That's another 100 gigs worth of hard drive space easily that I've saved from not having world updates installed for places I don't fly to. And I was excited about them at first, and I installed them all at first, but I've gotten away from it now. All right, yeah, we're getting to the point where I should start thinking about this arrival, and I think my dog wants to go out and go for a quick potty break outside. So I'm going to just go quickly let them out, and then we're going to come back and set up this arrival. So just give me 2 minutes, guys. I'll be right back. Right. If I let them run around for the time it takes me to do this setup, it'll probably be just perfectly timed that finish the setup and they'll want to come back in. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so don't have anything showing up there, and I do have a JFK ATIS on VATSIM, so we're going to grab that. JFK ATIS details. Information Bravo, 1651 Zulu, the wind's 270 at 20, gusting 24, a little bit gusty in New York. 10 miles scattered at 6,000. 3 degrees, -9, 2983. Approaching use, ILS 31 right, ILS 31 left. Departing runway 31 left. So I'm going to bet 31 right would probably be the best one to assign myself. Operate transponder on mode C on all taxiways and runways. Read back all hold short instructions. Advise you have info Bravo. Okay, so Bravo it will be. So we're going to plan the ILS to 31 right at New York's Kennedy Airport here. Alright, so let's pull up the charts for Kennedy, and let's start setting this whole thing up here. ILS 31 right, that's the one we're looking for. Alright, ILS to 31 right, they're departing 31 left, so I think most of the arrivals will end up on 31 right, you would assume. Alright, and before we even do that, let's do a few quick checks here. So let's just check the status page here. And nothing unusual on the status page. Center tank, fuel pump's unusable. Landing elevation still is auto at 0 feet. And let's just do a landing performance calculation. No, that's the wrong button. That one. Alright, JFK, runway 31 right. Sounds like it's a dry runway today. Let's apply the METAR. Landing weight, so that's always the question. What's the landing weight going to be? Fuel prediction. 55.6 plus 4.7 is, let's see here, that's 59.6, 60.3. Let's round it up a little tiny bit, just give it a little bit of an extra safety margin on here and call it 60.5. In case we get a little direct, burn a little bit less gas than expected. 60.5 for the landing weight. All right, auto brake low. idle or no reverse, manual landing, flap full, auto thrust on. That's all those options sound good. And so we've got a landing distance, let's see here. So we got a factored landing distance here of 7,500. And the landing distance available is 8,900. So we definitely have low auto brake would be certainly sufficient for this runway. So we can go ahead and pre-select that at this point. And then we can just make sure everything's set up here in the box. So what we'll do is we'll go into plan mode, constraints, take the zoom down, try and put this in a certain way that I can see everything all at once here. All right. And let's just go through the whole box here. So Cameron for arrival. I haven't even gotten close to it yet. It starts at SIE, which is S-I-E. All right, there it is, S-I-E. And then from there we go to Botan, Hogs, Pansy, Cars, and Cameron. And that's the last fix, and then that's vectors after that by New York Approach. No New York Approach online, and we just do the self-vector. Expect 250 at 11,000. So let's go ahead and put this constraint in there. 11,000. And we'll put the 250 constraint on there. If it'll take them both. Now it's got to recalculate everything. So now you can see Cameron 11,250 knots. So it's recalculated everything through there, so that should work. It's probably recalculated our top of descent point as well. And expect radar vectors to the final fix. There's no special notes on here. It's just follow this route. Oh, I missed Hogs here at 180. How did I miss that? It's expect. But one thing I know about New York is that pretty much all of these expect altitudes, you can pretty much guarantee you're going to get them. So it says expect, which means you're not obligated to follow them, but it would be in your best interest to plan on all of these because chances are pretty good you're going to get them. 9 times out of 10 you're going to get the constraints that are published on these New York arrivals. So there's Hogs at 18,000. So there we go. All right. Once we're done that, once we're done the Cameron 4, then we're going to be vectors over to our own vector 231 right. Hopefully some New York Center or some New York arrival shows up. That'd be great. I would be very happy if they did. If they don't, we're just going to, it's just sort of setting us up straight on the left base. So we'll pretty much probably just go direct CATOD at that point. So do I have CATOD in here? I do not. It starts at Maldi. So let's go ahead and add that back in. I think the VIA was there and I took it out because I don't like the VIAs because you never know if it's a transition that's going to close out the star. In this case, it's not closing the star. It should still be an open star at this point. Nope, that closed the star. Yeah, you son of a bugger. All right, well, let's do this. Let's do next waypoint. Let's just do something really wacky. Because then what that does is that creates a discon. If there's something really wacky that gets added in there, that creates an artificial discon, then I can clear out the wacky, but now I still got the discon. Cameron, discon, CATOD. Oh, I like it. That's how I want it. That's what you want. You want the discon in there initially, and we'll close it up later if we get a direct. Because this way we're set to kind of fly what we're cleared if New York Approach shows up. All right, so then for the fixes, it's CATOD above 3,000, Maldi above 3,000. We can even go direct Maldi if we're doing 3,000 and Zulab at 1,900. That's good. The missed approach is 1,800. Then climbing left turn 4,000 outbound to LaGuardia, 207 radial to Mofa intersection. So 1,800, then intercept 1,800. Then climbing left turn 4,000 and intercept 207 to Mofa. Hold there at 4,000. So it's 4,000 feet for that hold. Perfect. RadNav, it looks like it's already tuned in. IRTH 111.5, 314, I love it. Prog page, I'm going to put the JFK VOR on here now for a reference. So we are, boom, boom, 251 miles from touchdown at JFK. Let's see here, GPS is still primary. Perf-wise, we got a cost index of 5, and we're still getting there super fast today. Descent 76257, wow, it's a pretty slow descent, but I'll go with it for now. If they want us to go faster, they'll tell us to go faster if anyone comes online. For now, we'll go with it. We can always manually select a higher speed if we want. Let's see here. So, what did I say? 2983. So 2983. Temperature of, I think I said 3 degrees. 3 degrees, and the wind's 270 at 20. 3 degrees, 270 at 20. And the ILS minimums on this, 212. We'll check the NOTAMs in a second. We'll just finish all this kind of stuff here, then we'll go through the NOTAMs, make sure there's nothing in there. 4,000 for the missed approach, so we're going to do that. We'll just set the acceleration altitude, both 2-engine and single-engine, to 4,000. All right, so that's all good. Fuel prediction. So now we're still showing 1.6 extra in JFK, 45 minutes. So we definitely can do a missed approach, come back, try another approach. Not a problem there. Secondary, going to copy the active, and what I might do is I just might throw up the ILS to 3-1 left here. Not expecting to do it, especially if there's no controllers online, but let's just see what we got here. 3-1 left. I don't want to do it from... I guess I could do it from chant. Alright, so turn that. 3-1 left. So these are all the same. CI, Boton, Hogs, Pansy. And because I copied it, it's copied the restrictions as well there, which is perfect. Cameron. Chant. Yeah, okay, I could see us doing chant. That might be a very reasonable. And then that's also a missed approach waypoint as well, so we can circle back around for that one. Zax, Meals, 1800, and that all looks good. Missed approach, 500. Intercept 500, and then I intercept a course of 192 chant, hold at 3000. Okay, that's good. And then also secondary performance. So the minimums for this approach got all the same performance data, but the minimums are different. It's 213, and the mist is also different. So slash 3000, 3000. So now, if we get a runway change, we've mitigated the risk of that, of the big distraction of a runway change by setting it up ahead of time. Now we got both runways already set up and ready to go. Whichever runway we end up getting, doesn't matter anymore. All right. With that, we are pretty much set up. Let's just have a quick look here. Let's go back into ARC mode, make sure I know where we are. We're not off course. Everything's looking good. We never did get another big jump, did we, back? Weird. Big sudden jump in altitude, and then we never jumped back, did we? Weird. Okay. NOTAMs, that's what the last thing I gotta check here. So let's just have a little sim brief look here. Probably lots of NOTAMs for JFK, no doubt. No, that's Dulles, that's too far. JFK. Here we go. Alright. And actually, before I even look at the NOTAMs, probably the most useful thing would be to know what gate we're going to, because then we can sort of look at them relative to our expected taxi route rather than memorize the NOTAMs first and then look at a taxi route. So let me just find a flight from New Orleans to New York. Let's see if there's a JetBlue flight that did this. Probably was. Seems like they have a 1 a day. Nope, they got... Yeah. There is one that's en route. It's delayed, but it's en route, and it will arrive at gate 21 in New York. So let's just have a look here. JFK. Let's pull up parking gates. I feel like there's multiple terminals. I am about 70% certain that JetBlue operates Terminal 5, but please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here, and I'm actually going to look it up. JetBlue Terminal JFK. Apparently it's a pretty common search. Terminal 5 at JFK. Alright, so gate 21 at Terminal 5. Hopefully I can figure out how to tell GSX. Terminal 5, gate 21. So this is where we're going anyways. Alright, so we got a good sense of where we're going. Let's go back to the airport page, and now we can sort of look at... Nope, wrong airport. Let's look at this airport page, and let's compare this here. So, Bravo between Delta and Whiskey closed. Let's see here. There's Bravo. there's Bravo. Okay, so this is Bravo here, between Delta and Whiskey. Okay, that might impact our taxiing. Charlie 6 closed. Alright, Charlie 6 is up here. Signs missing. I'm okay with signs missing. Position's not standard. We're not more than 140-foot wingspan. Signs missing. Whiskey Alpha between Alpha and Bravo closed. Whiskey Alpha between Alpha and Bravo closed, which is where that other closure is anyway, so that makes sense. Terminal 2 ramp closed. I think this is Terminal 2, so I guess that whole ramp is closed. Line lights. Quebec 3 closed. Quebec 3. Alright, so the only one that really seems to impact us is this one here. And if I was familiar with this airport, it'd be easier too, but I'm not at all. Terminal Bravo between Terminal 8 ramp and Alpha. Tango Bravo, there it is, yeah. Okay. Zulu between 4 left, 2 right, and Yankee closed. Zulu between 4 left, 2 right, and Yankee. This part closed, that's fine. 1.5 miles on categories. Alright, so we're not doing a SID. Approach procedures. Let's have a look, see if there's anything with the ILS 31s. RNAV Yankee 31. ILS will load 31 left. At JFK VOR. BDP at JFK. Screen is down. Okay, so 31 left has got higher minimum. Straight in. ILS 31 left. DA is now 287. 287. So we'll change that in a second. I'm just gonna see if there's anything else I'm gonna need to change here. That's 31 right. DA is 217. Alright, so let's just scroll down to the box and just make sure I've updated these. So 31 left. 287. And then 31 right is 217. Where'd I go here? That's 3 left. 31 right, 217. So that really is only a very small increase, but it's an increase nevertheless. That's why we read our NOTAMs. 31 right definitely gets us lower. Alright. Yeah, that's all the NOTAMs. So that definitely had an impact on us there, but I think that's okay. Are you ready for the approach briefing?
Go ahead.
Now, one thing I will say that is smart that FS2 crew does now is when I ask them this question, it pops up this window here. Hey, fill out all this information. APU after landing, yes. ILS. No, I would have said airspace traffic is a threat. Auto land, no. Final sector, no. EFIS LS required, yes. We're going to require LS. Minimum descent altitude, so we determine that's 217. And airport elevation of, what's the airport elevation here? Kennedy 13. Kennedy 13. There we go. So now that's all good. Okay. All right, buddy, you ready? So we're going to be doing the, let's see here. Technical status of the airplane. There's nothing wrong with the airplane other than the MEL, which doesn't impact our operation at all because we don't have any fuel in the centric tanks. And NOTAMs. There was one NOTAM that affected the operation. There's a couple taxiway closures, but the biggest one that affects our operation is the fact that we have a higher minimums on final. Nope, no decision height because we're doing a Cat 1. So we're just doing decision altitude. Only do decision height if you're doing Cat 2 or 3. Yeah, so we're doing the Cameron 4 arrival into New York's Kennedy International Airport as soon as it loads. Plate 20-2. And the routing constraints are all as published on the chart. It's all the expect constraints have all been added as hard restraints. If we don't meet them, it's fine if we haven't been given them, but at least we're ready and planned to meet all of them already. Once we pass Cameron, we're going to be on radar vectors, or self-radar vectors, as the case may be, to get us to the ILS to runway 31 right in New York's Kennedy International 21-7. So the Lokes IRTH 111.5 and 314, the inbound course. 1900 at Zulab, and 217 is the amended ILSDA minimums because of a crane near the airport. Missed approach is climbed to 1,800 feet. Missed approach is as published. It's all in the box, or as otherwise advised by ATC, with a top altitude of 4,000. The highest MSA around the JFK VOR is 2,900 feet to the northwest, which is basically towards where Manhattan is. Let's see. Radars required for procedure entry. Well, we're not going to have that, but that's okay. We're going to do it ourselves. We have RNAV. Good enough. VGSI and ILS glide path not coincident. We've got a 3-degree glide slope, normal 3-degree glide slope. Happy's on the right for this runway. MALSR lighting system. RVR 1800 or a half mile required. It's a beautiful VFR day. Landing on runway 31 right. We're going to aim to touchdown at the optimal touchdown zone, which is from the aiming marks to the first marks thereafter. The TPL 3,000 feet down the runway. Let's go ahead and call it. It's 10,000 feet in total. That's about halfway down the runway. I'm going to say Delta 8 is going to be kind of our TPL here. The Delta 8 crossing here just after the intersection is going to be our TPL, our touchdown point limit. If we're not down by then, it's an automatic go-around. Otherwise, if we do land successfully, it is a convenient left turn off the runway, probably around Whiskey or Whiskey, and we're probably going to circle back on Alpha to enter the apron around Delta Alpha. I'll have to figure out how the gates are numbered in the INI builds to get to gate 21 at Terminal 5 specifically. Let's see here. So, yeah, it's going to be a managed approach to a manual landing. It's going to be a coupled low glide slope approach. Once we're clear for the approach and we're turned towards final, we're kind of approaching the intercept point. We'll arm the approach mode, second autopilot. I'm not expecting the anti-ice to be on for this. We got low auto brake. We'll do full reverse because who cares about noise in the sim, and config full for landing. Yeah, I'll disengage the autopilot once we're established on final and landing's assured. There's no traffic ahead. There is a ground controller as of right now in JFK. I don't think there's a terminal controller that handles it. There was a Newark terminal controller, but they're not there anymore. The only guy left in the New York area is a ground controller. He's been on for an hour and a half now, so I kind of give him about 50-50. He's going to still be there when we get there. But we're going to try. We're going to hope that he's still there. And, wow, we are coming up to our top of descent point already. Oh, jeez. Did I miss the... Yeah, and there we go. All right, so first of all, quick PA. Flight attendants, 30 minutes to landing. Let's go ahead and set a lower altitude. Let's go and set that 11,000 for Cameron. Wow, that just stuck up on me with that 120 knots behind us the whole way. Wow, this is a fast flight. All right, there is mock descent, alt magenta. And yeah, and we got 1,000 feet set with the level off at 18,000 feet at Hogs. Wow. This is a fast flight, cost index 5, and I'm still like, oh my god, like we're there. I can't believe we're already on our descent. All right, so that's it for my approach briefing. Any threats? So threats today, possible runway change as a threat. There's thrust idle. We've mitigated that already by putting it into the secondary. So we've got 3-1 left ILS with the higher minimums per the NOTAM already set up and ready to go in the secondary. So all we have to do if we get assigned 3-1 left is activate the secondary. That's the first big threat. Second threat, I'd say, on VATSIM is no ATC at this time. We should make sure we have the ground frequency primed and ready to go. 21.9. We will have to switch to it as soon as we get off the gate. And minor threat there as well, but we're going to have to figure out, crunch away to figure out which gate 21 is the correct gate 21 per GSX. So hopefully they've labeled it like 521 for Terminal 5, gate 21 or something useful and hard to... not hard to figure out, but we may have some issues with trying to figure out which gate we're going to as we taxi in. Some closed taxiways. We'll follow the ATC instructions, and we're aware of where the closed taxiways are on the chart. There's really only one that should affect us, and that's that portion of Bravo that's closed. Let's see here, other threats. Well, there's not much of a threat. Runway length is fine. Width is fine. Conditions fine. A little bit of a gusty wind. May add a couple of knots to VAP here. So VAP right now is coming in at 134. I may add a couple knots. I'm not 100% sure yet. We'll see how it looks, but I may round it up to like 138 or something like that, just to give us a little bit of extra leeway on the VAP. And ground speed mini should also help mitigate that threat by giving us plenty of ground speed with the gusty winds. What else? What else? I'd say that's covered off most of the threats, really, at the end of the day. I can't think of too many other threats. The MEL is not a threat at all. Performance is not really an issue. Yeah, I think that's about all I've got for threats. Any questions?
No questions.
Pre-descent checklist. Or descent checklist. What do you call it? It's got to be something here. Is there no descent checklist? Really? No, it's just the approach checklist. Oh, weird. Okay, fine.
Check speed.
I have control.
You have control.
What happened to my track IR? Uh-oh. Every once in a while this happens too. This is not... Track IR stops working altogether. Oh, there it goes. I think there's a loose connection in there somewhere. There we go. Okay. Alright. It's annoying when it stops working because it's so second nature to me that I can just look around and see things, and I can look at you. Dan, you're doing a bang-up job there. At least you didn't lose control of the airplane while I stepped away. Alright, we are in descent. I'm just going to step away for about 2 minutes just to let my dogs back in, and I'll be right back, guys, and then we'll set up for this approach into Kennedy. Alright guys, apologize for that, but you know, it's getting cold out there. Can't leave the dogs out there forever anymore. It's definitely getting much too cold out there to leave them outside for too long, so... when did I hit Bird? He must have heard me say something. Yeah, I forgot to mute him. I forgot to mute him. So he's just playing all sorts of stuff, doing all sorts of things when I walked away. Oh buddy, what am I gonna do with you, Dan? You're a little bit too much of a go-getter sometimes. You didn't need to put the bird onto that. What happened to my flight directors? You killed the flight directors altogether. Why would you kill the flight directors? What is wrong with you? Honestly. I walk away for 1 minute.
Good morning, Delta Full Navigator 31 right. We're expecting hotels.
Oh shoot. I tuned in 21.9 and I flipped it over. I didn't mean to flip it over. Alright. Sailing up the coast of New Jersey here. Sailing up the Jersey coast. On our way down to 11,000 for Cameron. That was a quick flight. That, I don't know about you guys, that felt really quick. And maybe it's just because I ran too much, but that's the quickest flight I've done in a while, I think, on stream. We've been doing a lot of longer flights. Like we've been doing like, you know, 1,000-mile flights. To do a 1,000-mile flight in 2 hours is pretty impressive, though. And the other thing I find too is that because I take the setup process in this aircraft more thoroughly than any other aircraft, it is a lot. Tama GT, good afternoon. Yeah, I hope you're well as well. Welcome to the stream. You're catching us just in time. We're on our way down already. We still have 133 knots? No, 112, 113 knots behind us. We had 140 something at one point. So this flight from New Orleans to New York has only taken us 2 hours. it just flew by. I can't believe we're already on descent. I'm really loving it though. I mean, it's nice to get this done. And so the next legs, actually, we haven't even talked about this, but the next legs that are coming up for everybody, I believe we're going back down to Tampa again from Kennedy. Nope, that's the wrong button. This button. Yes, after this we do Kennedy to Tampa, Tampa back up to Kennedy, and then we're done season 11. Can't believe another season's already almost over, but these ones are a little bit shorter. These are 875 miles. This is definitely a solid 2 hours or less flight. So I am going to do my darndest to try and get an evening stream. I don't know how it works for all you guys who are watching now, because now you're obviously watching me during the day. But I know a lot of guys that like to fly with me. They can't do weekdays during the day, and I get it. I get it. You know, I have a very unusual schedule where I'm always off, not always, but I'm off and off on weekdays during the day. And I realize that's not normal for everyone. Normally evenings are pretty solidly family time, and I try not to cut into that too much. But I'm going to have to think about it. And yeah, I would like to this month find some evenings, find 1 or 2 evenings where where we can do this. Maybe hopefully an evening where we get some ATC as well. But find 1 or 2 evenings where we can try and get these flights done in the evening and do it as a group flight on stream, of course. But get a couple people with me here, and let's grab the Airbus, let's grab the 737, and let's do that flight down the coast together. Because it's a very reasonable length of time too. It's about a 2-hour flight. It's a very reasonable length of time to get online, to expect some ATC online, especially if it's in the evening, and to take you guys with me, because we haven't done a group flight. I don't think I've had anyone accompany me on one of these flights for at least a season now. And last year, because of the way my schedule was working out, I was off a lot on weekends and stuff like that, and I was able to squeeze in a lot of these weekend streams. A lot of people flying with me, so there's the L constraint. Why is it not level? And then okay, Maze didn't level off there, and there's transition as well. So there's no, it's not 3041. It's 2987. Hold on, what was it? It was 2983 was what we had.
3023 set passing 17,600 now.
Not even close, buddy. Okay, we'll get rid of that nav discrepancy here in a second. Winding this down to 2983. But yeah, I would love to do that, because I haven't done a group flight. Yeah, it was just last year. It was kind of not luck of the draw, but just the situation I was in last year. I had a lot of chances to stream on weekends. It's just not going to be the case probably ever again for a long, long time. I hate to say it, but. So I will try my best. That'll be my Christmas present to everybody. Is I'll try my best to find 2 evenings in the month of December where we can do group flights together. We can get these next 2 legs. We can do a leg from JFK down to Tampa, and then maybe another week we'll try to do the leg back. All right, so there's 2983 inches is set. We're on our way down to Cameron at 11,000. Looking pretty good. How's the TAT? TAT's still minus 15. The SAT's still minus 29. Ooh, she's cold out there still. I can probably get rid of the sim brief panel. You guys don't need to see that. Just trying to kind of clean up everything and make sure we're ready for arrival here. Go back to my V pilot. All I've got is JFK ground. That's all I've got now in the New York area. We had a couple other controllers on. They've all left. 270, 20 goes to 24. So this is still information Bravo, so still hasn't updated yet. Okay. So 2983 is the correct altimeter setting. Okay, good. Just want to double check it, make sure I didn't make a mistake. But we do appear to have the correct altimeter setting. We're going to descend down to Cameron at 11. We're really not going very fast in this descent here, and it's still like, you know, we were sailing at cost index 5, and it still took less than 2 hours. And yet we probably saved a ton of money in terms of like how much fuel we would have burned normally on a New Orleans flight. We probably would have loaded normally probably like closer to 12 tons. So we didn't even load that 2 tons, but then we also didn't you know, pay money, burn fuel just to carry it around. And that was still running cost index 5. With a less of a tailwind and running cost index 50 to do the same flight in the same amount of time would probably have burned about 2 more tons of fuel. So we're definitely saving fuel for the company here. I think I even looked at the outside of the airplane the whole stream either. It was just so busy. I was having fun though. We're having some good cats. some external shots here so we can get something to look at on the next title card there. Alright, anyways, now we're really getting close to Cameron. We should really start focusing on what we're doing here, because we are going to have to just sort of vector ourselves over towards the ILS there. It's basically going to be more or less straight ahead, which is actually not too bad. Yeah, I do my best. I will really do my honest to God best to try and find an evening in the month of December, and we'll go and we'll do these flights as group flights again, because I enjoyed that, and I kind of missed that. Like it is the time of day that I'm available. It's the only way I can get myself a stream in, and this is the first time I fired up the sim in possibly 2 weeks. I've just been working so much that even on my day off, I don't think I fired up the sim on my day off. It was just one day off in the middle. I might have fired it up, but I had so much to do that day. One day off in the middle of 10 days of work. That was even yeah. I can't honestly remember if I fired up my sim that day or not, but it might be 2 weeks since I fired up my sim last. Got a couple days off at least this week, so I'm going to hopefully get some flying in, and I got some other stuff I got to do. You know, it's almost December. It's time to think about putting up Christmas lights. So that's definitely on my list this week of stuff I'd like to do. Christmas shopping maybe if I have a chance. I've kind of done a few things, thinking about a few other things. December gets busy really quick, and I do have quite a bit of work scheduled in December. I do technically have a week of vacation, but the way our vacation is structured, and the way our scheduling is structured, if you have a week of vacation, you often end up with a short end of the stick, because you don't get very much credit for the vacation, so you end up working harder during the weeks that you're not off. What am I controlling next? That's also an excellent question. I don't know, but I was thinking, yeah, I honestly hadn't thought that far ahead, but I might even control tonight for a little while. I've got a couple days off. I don't have to go to bed super early. Speed Alt Star. Just crossing Cameron here at 250 at 11,000. There it is. Speed Alt. Perfect. And yeah, there's the triple click, revert to heading, because we got nothing left after this. Alt, and that's fine. I'm okay with this heading. I'm going to just turn actually slightly to the right, 040, and that'll probably cut us pretty close to intercepting final where we want to there. Might need a little vector adjustment there. But all right, then the other thing we'll do is we'll start going down as well, and let's just give it straight to 3,000, and let's see what happens if I put in VS minus 1,000. See where that puts us relative to. All right, it might be a little bit late for the level off. So what if I do like 1,400? Let's watch where the arc goes there. Watch where the blue goes there. Yeah, something like that's pretty reasonable. Give us a little bit of time to slow down there. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Alright, let's go ahead and go, because it's still minus 11 TAT, so engine anti-ice is going on. Yeah, I might control tonight for a little while, and I don't even know where I'll control, but my first thought is that it's Tuesday, so Edmonton has their weekly event on Tuesday night, so I might go and control Vancouver and do the peripheral traffic from Vancouver. I don't know. I don't want to promise that yet, and I wouldn't be online till probably about 03 Zulu tonight, about 10 p.m. Eastern time. So, but I think I might try and do that. So I also haven't been controlling very much. The last few days have been a lot of flying, a lot of time at work, very little downtime. So I haven't controlled for a couple days for sure. Even the last 2 weeks, I haven't controlled as much as I would normally like to. So that's kind of my thought, anyways. Approach checklist.
Barrow ref.
2983 set.
2983 set. Seatbelts.
On.
Minimum.
217 feet set.
Auto brake.
Low. Low armed.
Engine mode selector.
Normal.
Approach checklist completed.
Thank you. Yeah. Don't know 100%, but I think that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. Is I might control tonight for a couple of hours. I haven't done it much lately. It's just been so much work, and then if we are getting into that holiday season as well, that's the other thing too. So December is coming up. It's coming up quickly, and it was kind of nice actually. I did get to control this past weekend. On Saturday, I was lucky enough to have a couple of hours to myself, and I wasn't sure if I was going to. So oftentimes I don't sign up for events because I can't really guarantee my availability, and it's a never-ending problem for me. I like to participate in events, I really do, but I often don't know about the events in advance, and even when I do, I can't guarantee my availability for the events, so I often don't sign up for them. But this past Saturday, there was an event. I think it was called Chase the Sun or Follow the Sun or something like that. Basically, it was flying from Toronto to Vancouver through all of Canada. And so, you know, it's sort of in order. It's about a 4 to 5 hour flight, depending on the airplane. But in order, go through all the FIRs in order. So there was a lot of disorganization problems with the whole planning of the event. Unfortunately, there was not a lot of great communication planning the event. So the middle FIRs were not really necessarily... certainly we're going to be staffed, so I kind of had some time to myself, so I was going to hop on if I saw that they were not being staffed and that they needed some support. And literally both times when it looked like there was nobody coming on, I click connect, and literally within the 60 seconds before I click connect, somebody else had already connected on as, first of all, Winnipeg Center and then Edmonton Center. And that's great, because at the end of the day, I was just happy that there were controllers online, so then I went just controlled some peripheral terminal positions around there just to help provide some support and take a little bit of load off. But it looked like a fun event. I was happy to kind of participate in that. But other than that, I have not controlled much lately. It's been tough for me to just find the time. It really has been tough for me to find the time. And as I said, December is never a great month for that sort of thing. You've always got a laundry list of stuff that's got to get done. That's why I almost think that evenings sometimes will work better, because I'm kind of almost guaranteed I'm home some of the evenings. So I might try and take an evening. Let's see, where's my device here? If I just glance at my schedule here really quick. And of course it's not logged in when you want to look at it, but if I look at this really quickly here, and I should be paying more attention to what's going on in the airplane, I'll focus back in a second here, but I believe I got a couple of evenings next week. I'm free during the middle of the week, so if you're not in my Discord already, please drop in the Discord, because I use the Discord to kind of organize sometimes what days work best for people. Try and kind of fix things, but yeah, yeah, next week is kind of the same as this week, off Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, with a very early start on Friday. Holy moly. So yeah, so yeah, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday evening next week, I might try and do one stream, and then I probably have to skip a weekend, and the week before Christmas I'll do the last stream of season 11. So yeah, if you're not in the Discord already, please join it. I'm not a big fan of Discord for a lot of reasons. 4,000 is only 3,000, but it can be a useful communication medium sometimes. It's not great for widespread communication because it just gets so cluttered and clogged so quickly. Alright, let's start dragging the speed back here. See the airport over there. We're actually going to intercept a pretty long final here, so let's cut this back a little bit now. See if we can point ourselves right at Catod. And yeah, so there's Alt-Star. What we should be doing actually here as well is we should be doing a radial into Catod. 134 radial in. Yeah, that sounds right. And that looks right. I don't know why he turned those on, but we've got, yeah, so let's go ahead and do that. Insert nav blue. Now it's disarmed again. I don't know what you're doing, buddy. Alright, we don't need the engine anti-ice anymore. We can definitely shut that off again. Let's look at it a little better. And what do we got to touch down here? And we didn't even put the LS button on. Oh my god, because your approach checklist sucks at the end of the day. It should be part of the check anyways, but okay, there's the 15 miles to go.
Checked.
Flaps 1.
Speed checked. Flaps 1.
Alright, no change in status. Remove status. Remove status. Yeah, well, and that's fine. I don't always check a lot either, honestly. I usually check my Discord only before I do the stream in the couple days leading up to a stream. So that's fine. But I think I will have a discussion about that later this week. About what days would be kind of good for everybody. let's take up a 340 heading here, and that'll be a good intercept heading. Hopefully my sim survives this. So I think what we'll do is we'll switch to the better performance at this point, because otherwise I feel like we're going to start to lose our frame rate, especially with Manhattan directly in front of us as we're turning final here. All right, looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and clear for the approach. Approach mode, second autopilot. And I've got Loke Star, Glide Slope Blue, Cat 3 Dual, autopilot 1 and 2. All right, looking good. New York Kennedy traffic, JetBlue 422 is turning a 12-mile final, runway 31 right. And I can't remember. It's Terminal 5, right? Because I got to tell the ground controller when we land. It's Terminal 5 is JetBlue terminal, right? Pretty sure it said Terminal 5. It's this one in the corner here. This is Terminal 5, yep. Okay. Just so I know what to tell the controller when we get there. Alright, speed 190. Glide slope's coming to life here. Frame rate's not terrible.
Traffic, November 430. Hotel Delta. It's on a 5-mile final.
I have no idea how to select the right terminal here. This looks like it's got about the right number of gates, so maybe it's this one, but I don't know. If anyone can look it up and see if there's any logic to any builds. Glide Slope Star. And missed approach altitude of 4,000 feet set. Flaps 2.
2,500.
Flaps 2.
Speed checked. Flaps 2.
Glide slope.
Speed checked. Flaps 2.
Speeds managed. Gear down.
Gear down. Cabin crew be seated for landing.
Flaps 3.
Speed checked. Flaps 3.
Flaps full.
Speed checked. Flaps full.
Landing check. Landing checklist.
ECAM memo.
Landing no blue.
Landing checklist completed.
Alright. Good to go. New York Kennedy traffic. JetBlue 422. 4 miles final. Runway 31 right. Alright, we got lights on. Everything's looking good. We got full flap. Gears down. Looking good. I'll just take a couple more gratuitous external screenshots. You never know what's going to look good on the... Some of the scenery around here, like, it really does look good. Like these houses. Oh man, this sim's completely pausing here.
1,000.
The houses look really nice. Autopilot's having a little bit of a fun time trying to keep this going. And you can see just the Freedom Tower at 12 o'clock. It's the only thing it draws at this distance. Isn't that funny? Didn't get any ATC for final, but at least we'll have some when we turn around here. Get off the runway. So I added a couple knots. I bumped it up to 138 just to sort of just give it a couple knots so it wasn't hanging right off the edge with the gusty winds. That might have been excessive, but sorry.
500.
Stable. Autopilot's coming off. Cat 1. Land.
Hundred above.
100 above.
Roger.
Minimum.
Continue.
Minimums.
$100. 50. 40. 30. 20. Retard.
A bounce there. Okay. Go around, flaps. Go around, flaps.
Pitch.
Speed.
Oh, for crying out loud, yeah. You're supposed to do flaps, buddy.
Speed.
Alright, positive rate, gear up. That was a horrible go around because Buddy didn't touch the flaps, he didn't do anything. Yes, it still hasn't moved the flaps for me. Thank you. I need flaps 3 at least so we can accelerate. Jesus. Alright, it isn't go around track mode. Just 400 feet, I'm going nav mode. Autopilot back on because there's just entirely too much going on here. Yeah, that was much too much of a bounce there. It really kind of just sank on final there. Alright, so we got the gears up, flaps. Alright, and we have reached the thrust reduction altitude. So there is climb thrust. The auto thrust kicked off as well there. Thrust climb, auto thrust. Alright. We're going to go up to 4,000. We're going to follow the missed approach and we're going to come back and try this again because that really that was a really hard bounce. There came a point where it was just like, no, it's too much. Alright, so there's 3,500 climbing 4,000. There's speed, alt star. Flaps 1.
Speed checked. Flaps 1.
Flaps 0.
Speed checked. Flaps 0.
Alright, we'll do 220 selected in the downwind here. That was a horrible. It was doing alright, then it really just fell right out, bounced way too high. Alright, so sometimes that's the best decision. Alright, let's do heading mode. Let's do a downwind leg. We'll do it just a little bit wide so we got some space. It seems like the go around has really kind of lagged the Fenix system too now. It's really kind of taken a couple seconds for it to respond to any input here. She did not like that go around. Yeah, and you look at the displays, they're not bad, but you can see they're kind of getting a little clicky now. Alright, so we're in go around, that's fine. Activate approach phase. And let's go to direct to CATOD. Radial in again, insert. Crazy Nugget 8, welcome to our visual circuit at JFK here. Alright, I think we've done everything though. We got the airplane reestablished, we've got the approach reprogrammed in. There's nav blue, there's nav disarmed again. So we got speed, alt, heading 220. And we can probably hop down to 3,000 in a second here as soon as we get still on Unicom. I don't think I made a call on Unicom, did I? Kennedy traffic, JetBlue 422 is in a left downwind for a ILS runway 31 right. Alright, the nice thing is the way it restrings the approach, it makes it very easy for you to get back and do a second do a second approach here. So just want to get past the airport. Yeah, okay, we're past the airport. Let's go down to 3,000 just in case there are any departures. I don't want to interfere with any departures. So there's thrust idle, open descent, all blue. Let's try this again.
Kennedy traffic, Shamrock 1 Lima Mike on it, final 31 right, 10 mat.
Oh, there's somebody else flying in. Shamrock. We'll have to slide in behind Shamrock here. I think, is that him there? Yeah. Would you do a United 737 flight from Boston LaGuardia? Well, I'm not going to do one now because once I've done this, I got stuff I got to do today. So I've been at this now for 2.5 hours. It's time to kind of get ready to pull the plug. Speed Alt Star. There's Alt. So we'll turn just outside Maldi for the base leg. Right now, my next leg would be scheduled. I've got my legs are all pre-scheduled, so my next leg after this one that we're doing right now, which was New Orleans up to JFK, would be JFK down to Tampa. But we're not going to do that today because I don't have enough time to do that today. No, but maybe if you ask me really nicely, I can do it as a Christmas bonus once I finish the last 2 legs. I really want to get these next couple legs of this Pilot's Life season done here. All right, let's see how we're doing here. It is an interesting flight, and that's a fast flight too. Like New York to Boston. Oh, that is a fast flight. You got to be on your game and be ready, basically ready for the approach before you even take off. That's always a fast flight. One thing I didn't do actually was disarm the ground spoilers. I realized that now. I didn't disarm the ground spoilers when we leveled off, but that's all right. All right, cut this corner a little bit here. Take up about a 110 heading. So I never see that Shamrock. Where's that Shamrock? Oh, I think I see him right there. Just see just some faint flashing lights. It's almost hard to see, but he's so far away. The lights are very faint, but he's there. All right, so we should be able to slot in behind him. Flaps 1.
Speed checked. Flaps 1.
See, now he's back in sync and he's doing everything he's supposed to, but sometimes he gets out of sync. Remove status. No change in status. Sometimes he gets out of sync and then he doesn't seem to want to do anything. So it can be very frustrating when that happens, but it seems like he's in sync this time. Okay, let's try that again. Yeah, that was just not a pretty. The approach was working out okay, and then short final, the nose just pitched down, and I find like that is my biggest complaint about Fenix's 320 is that it tends to the nose down moment in the flare tends to be very aggressive, much more so than the real airplane. Like you have to really reef on the controls to counteract it, and that's not at all the case. Like it's a very gentle input in the real airplane, but on this yoke, I feel like I have to just absolutely yank on it to try and get it to try and get a flare out of it. Well, you gotta do what you gotta do. Just not terribly happy about having to call a go around, but with a bounce that high, I was kind of hoping it wasn't too high of a bounce, but I could kind of see the bounce coming before it happened too. Alright, so it's clear for the approach. So I got a low blue glide slope, blue cap 3, dual autopilot 1 and 2. See, it's like it's chunky. The go around did not agree with the system here. Kennedy traffic. JetBlue 422 is joining a 10-mile final runway 31 right. Lokestar. She's definitely gotten. The plane's still kind of flying pretty smoothly, but the displays have gotten a little chunkier. A little harder time keeping up now. And I noticed that as soon as we hit the go around, that's when it really kind of the performance really started to go bad here. The rest of the performance outside is fine. So it's just the display system for some reason has become very laggy here. There's Loke. Glide slope star, missed approach altitude. Come on. There it is. See? 4,000 feet set. Wow. That's gotten really laggy. And I complain about FS2 crew sometimes not listening to me. Flaps 2.
Speed checked. Flaps 2.
I can take my mouse away and it finally catches up to it. Glide slope. It's getting really bad here. I don't know why. Like, it was weird. Like, it's just the Goron that triggered it. The Goron shouldn't trigger that much of a change, you would think. Gear down. Landing check. Gear down.
Gear down. Cabin crew be seated for landing.
Similar traffic, Shamrock 1 Lima, Mike, runway 31 right to be gated.
Flaps 3. Hello.
Speed checked. Flaps 3.
Flaps full.
Speed checked. Flaps full.
Landing checklist.
ECAM memo.
Landing no blue. Landing no blue.
Landing checklist completed.
Alright. Take 2. Wasn't impressed with that, but you gotta know when to bail too. It's what it comes down to. If the landing is not going well, sometimes you gotta bail on it. Even though it's frustrating. It's a nice long flight, and I got you guys all watching. And I know you're watching now. Watching to see what I do here. Kennedy traffic. JetBlue 422 is 3 miles final, runway 31 right. Okay, we got the lights all on again. Yeah, lights are all on. I might let the autopilot fly it a little closer to the runway this time, just to kind of try and keep it stable. But I find like the airplane intentionally pitches down. That's part of the programming, is it pitches down when you enter flare mode. It forces the nose down a little bit, so it forces the pilot to pull back against it, which is kind of the natural thing to do when you're landing an airplane. But I just think Fenix does it too aggressively. The real airplane does not push down that aggressively. You barely notice the push down. You sort of just gently start pulling back. But this thing, it's like, it seems like it's just like full forward push as soon as you hit the flare. So I often end up with these very hard landings. It's hard to land this Fenix. Alright, stable. She's definitely kind of wandering a little bit, trying to keep it here, but I'm going to let the autopilot flow ahead a little bit lower, just so it's a little bit more stable.
Above. Minimum.
Continue.
Checked.
Cat 1.
Checked.
100. 50. 40. 30. 20. Retard. 5.
Spoilers. Reverse green. Decel. $70 knots.
What's interesting is the speeds froze altogether. The PFD froze altogether there for a couple seconds in the decel. I was like looking for deceleration, and I really kind of had to hammer the brakes because I wasn't sure we were decelerating. It felt like it, but interesting. Kennedy traffic, JetBlue 422 clearing runway 31 right. Kennedy ground, hello. JetBlue 422 just vacated 31 right on Whiskey, going to Terminal 5. Did he log off? Oh, he logged off. Oh. I didn't even look. He logged off, okay. Well, I guess we're going to just taxi in ourselves then. No ATC at all. Thanks. Thanks for that. Alright, definitely not the prettiest approach I ever did, but it got us there in the end. Boy, my the Fenix is just ground to a halt here. Look, like the navigation display's not even swinging around.
Kennedy ground, Walker 741, taxiing to 31 left via Golf Alpha. We'll pass in front of us, airline at the top.
Okay, so we got off at Whiskey. Let's see here. Next is Whiskey Alpha. Yeah, we need to be Delta entry, so probably the second one here. This is Whiskey Alpha, yeah. So it looks like the gate was not correct. So request services. So maybe Gate Bravo 21, maybe. Feels like this is going to be like. There is no Bravo 21. Okay. I don't even know what to look for then. Like, D seemed kind of reasonable, but I didn't see. I'm gonna try it one more time here. So we're looking for Gate 21 here at Terminal 5. And the only reason I use this is show me this spot. That is the right gate. There it is. It did. Okay, perfect. Not that I needed to see, but I just wanted to confirm that like this is the numbering scheme is correct. All right. So, did you fire the APU up? No, you did not. You're just being useless here.
Kennedy traffic, Walker 741 departing runway 31 left at Kilo. South departure.
Yeah, that's why he did, because I didn't even do the spoilers. Wow. That go around really kind of messed the performance on my system here. It was doing all right on final, and now it's really slowly grinding along here. It's not the stream, it's just me. It's just my computer.
Kennedy traffic up 1565, taxi runway 31 left.
21 should be right about here by the looks of it. 24, 23, 22, 21. Okay, 23, 22, 21.
Ladies and gentlemen,
So 21 is right about there. There we go.
Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened until the captain has
After
turned
landing
off the
checklist.
seatbelt sign and the aircraft is parked safely at the gate.
Radar and predictive
This will be
wind
your
shear
indication
system.
It is safe to move about the cabin. Gather your belongings and disembark.
Off.
After
We'd like to
landing
thank you for
checklist
flying
completed.
with us today. We appreciate your business and hope to see you again on a future flight.
He didn't turn off any of these lights, did he? Okay, which one's 21? This one's 21 over here. I don't even see a marshaller. Must be inside the wall, probably. Fantastic. Alright. Approaching the gate. Taxi lights off. Looks like AP is available. NTIS is off. Accumulator pressure's checked. And the weather radar is confirmed as off. And I see what I assume is ground equipment here. Or did they want me to park over there? They want me to park over there. That was not 21. So even any builds is not correct.
Go ahead.
And Kennedy traffic up 1565, starting runway 31 left, Sally Kilo.
Aha. Wow. Alright, so so it is loading up stuff, but boy, it's gotten really slow. I don't know what happened, but with that go around, it really kind of messed the whole system up here. Alright, I cannot see a marshaller. I think we're going to have to go do the old-fashioned self-marshal here.
Radar and predictive wind shear system.
Cancel checklist.
Roger.
Say 320 on that first line, it does. Close enough for me. Please remember to submit your flight. Thank you. Parking checklist. Don't look at me, just do it. Parking checklist. Oh, I give up on you. Okay. Yeah, and I think oh, there it goes. Yeah, I give up on him.
Parking
Alright.
brake or chocks.
Set. Set.
Engines.
Off.
Wing lights.
Off.
Fuel pumps.
Off.
Are you sure about that? Parking checklist completed.
Well, I don't know why you tried to turn those pumps back on when they were obviously off already, but anywho. We made it. It wasn't great, it wasn't pretty, but we made it in the end. We did it safely as we could, and that's really is the name of the game. It wasn't an easy choice to kind of make that go-around decision, knowing everybody's sitting there watching, but at the end of the day, it becomes a safe decision. When you get a bounce that's that high, that probably was 20 or 30 feet back up in the air, you make the best decision you can, and the decision was to make another go-around. Especially because we were also drifting down the runway. It wasn't just the size of the bounce alone too, but also the amount of runway we used up through that bounce was way too much. So it was not pretty. It was not ideal. I haven't actually done that in a while, but sometimes it's a decision you got to make. So that's the decision I make. I stand by it as it wasn't pretty, it wasn't ideal, but it was the best decision to make under the circumstances. But we made it here. But boy, did that go around! Wow, it just completely ground my computer to a halt. I don't know what it was that didn't like it. I don't know if it was the Fenix itself or if it's the sim itself that didn't like it, but something did not like it and it just ground everything. So now, even now, just sitting here, outside, exterior view with nothing happening, I've got 12 frames going on in my sim, which is pretty sorrowful. Oh, wrong button. Submit flight. Alright, so there we go. So it probably won't be a great score on this one because of the fact that we didn't go around, but again, not a great score from a customer service perspective, but from a safety perspective, if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. And so that's what we did. We got it done at the end of the day. We got here safely. We had plenty of extra fuel for us to go around. It was not an issue. Unfortunately, the ground controller left in the interim, which is annoying because we thought we had one controller, but we got nothing. So that's it. So be it. Again, we're here safely. That's the important thing. So let's see if I do this, and you can see this. There you go. So there is. I just submitted my my flight there, so we'll see what the score is in a second here, but there's the next flight. New York back down to Tampa is going to be what we're going to do. Probably going to do it next week. Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday night next week. We'll try and do it. And, maybe get some ATC in the evenings. Hopefully the performance will hold up. I was afraid that Kennedy was going to kill the performance. It had an impact, but didn't seem like it was a big impact. It was that go-around. Right after the go-around, the Fenix system just absolutely ground to a halt. And you could see that the ND was barely moving. The PFD stopped updating in the landing roll, and then I thought we were still doing 100 knots. I'm like, we're not decelerating. I kind of looked at the window and like, I think we're decelerating, but I wasn't really positive, so I really kind of hopped on the brakes. It took over from the auto brake, hopped on the brake to stop it because it didn't look like it was decelerating properly. I think it was. I think it was doing a fine job, but boy, it was what a pain. But yeah, so that's what we're doing next time. So in the meantime, that's it for me today, guys. I've got nothing else. I got nothing else, so I'm going to go ahead and sign off. But thank you guys so much for coming with me for that flight. That was a lot of fun. It's nice to see a lot of you guys watching. I didn't even have a chance to fail anything. And I'm a little bit disappointed by that, but that flight went so quick. And by the time my Buttonville tribute rant was done, we were already almost ready to set up for the arrival. So next time I owe you guys a failure. And we will definitely do something en route next time. Fail something. I did have the one failure the other day that was automatic that actually came up, and I was surprised and pleased by it. But I'm hoping for a good failure next time. Maybe we'll throw some good MELs at it too. So if you guys have any suggestions for MELs, go join the Discord if you haven't already. We'll discuss what day is best for the most number of people next week and what works for me as well. But either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday night next week, probably starting at around 7 p.m. We'll do a stream, and we'll hop down to Tampa in the 320. Hopefully, I'll get a bunch of you guys to come with me. We'll have a nice little group flight together because that's always fun. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Stay warm wherever you are. Winter is coming. It's definitely getting cold out there these days, but stay warm, and we will see you guys all on the next stream. Enjoy the rest of your day.